If I take my kid out in the woods, I'm gonna teach him how to do him or her or they.
Shut the fuck up. Leaked document contradicts China's official narrative on Wuhan wet market. And then the next one after that is Watchdog Group calls on Trump Congress to impede China's, quote, organ genocide.
Speculatively.
Well,
100% opinion and speculation.
I'd like to pose a question to you guys first is, why did that building have that much fucking ammonium nitrate?
Welcome to the salt of the streets, coming at you every week with this food for thought. Hope you ready to eat. With everything going on in this nation, we need some information, and that's why salt need to be stationed in your rotation. With real talking, real topics, real people, real problems. Think we need some help to solve them, and leave it up to Colin and the Donovan. Cause that's what's that? Let's get ready.
And just like a red, white, and blue phoenix rising from the ashes of political bipartisanship, we are back to Salt of the Streets podcast.
This is Saturday, August 8th, 1:20 p.m., episode 91.
And welcome back, everybody, to the Salt of the Streets podcast, your one and only source for social and political commentary and all the weekly news, pop culture, and sports that you can handle. And the best part about the whole deal, it's all built from the ground up for people like you and me, the everyday normal person. So come down and join us as we discuss life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and continue our endless endeavors to bridge the gap between people and information. Side note, I heard Ben Shapiro try to rip that shit off this week from us.
Motherfucker!
So, as always, we are your hosts. I'm Colin.
I am Donovan.
And we are joined by a very, very, very extra special guest today. Our man, Zeke, coming at us from a completely different time zone.
Yes.
Welcome to the show, buddy.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys.
Dude, I'm so excited. This is the first, real hardcore long-distance guest we've had. And I'm hoping it's going to sound this good for you guys in the end, but it sounds great in my headphones. It sounds like you're right here, Zeke.
He's also one of the OG listeners. When we first started putting stuff out, Zeke, did you reach out to me? Did you discover our content, or did I ask you to listen to it? How did this come about?
Actually, I just saw you posting it on Facebook a while back, and I was like, fuck it, let's see what it's all about. And I really fucked with it. I'm not gonna lie. I started listening to you guys again, from episode 1. I was like, holy shit, this is you guys have made leaps and bounds and improvements, just constantly improving. It's really remarkable to see where you guys came from, but it was crazy.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I listened to. I think I watched one of our videos a week ago. I watched one of our very first ones. It was one of our pre-shows.
Yeah, first pre-show style.
Yeah, and we were setting up, at my table in my dining room and shit. And I was like, "Good God!"
That's
I know
so funny.
That's the type of shit we'll look back on and be like, "Jesus Christ, I can't believe that." But
I love that it's out there though, because we go back and listen to episode 1, as cringy as I think it is now. It's man, that was some real stuff we got on there at the beginning. The show now almost is totally unrecognizable from what it was.
Yes,
right. It's so funny. Oh my god!
Donovan's view on guns just fucking made leaps and bounds on that shit.
Oh yeah,
I know. I think that's the biggest measure. We talk about that all the time. Just the insane difference.
Mm-hmm.
That's.
Anyways, what are we going to talk about today, Donovan? I didn't bring up the topics like I usually do.
That's all right. We are going to talk. We're going to talk a little about the protests that have been going on. The riots that have been going on in Portland, because today is day 70. I think
70 or 71,
something
72.
like that. Whatever it was last week plus 14, or what last episode plus 14. That's what it is. And. So we're going to talk about that because we've now seen some people whose lives have been taken, in these protests, people who are there. And that sounds very ominous. We've seen some people who are protesting. So one guy specifically who was there with a firearm, there was an altercation, he was killed. And so we've seen some things like that. We've seen people who are in their cars that have been attacked. I saw the guy in the truck, they were they parked the bike in front of it and all that shit. And so we're going to talk about that. We are going to talk.
Showed up at Miss Lady's house. That was weird, but we'll talk about that.
We are going to talk about child trafficking a little bit. We talked about that during the pre-show a little bit, just in reference to like Ghislaine Maxwell, the shit that's been going on, some things that have come out. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk a lot about China today.
A lot about China.
And we are going to talk about China in broad terms, kind of the way that I think we've been dreaming about talking about it for a long time.
Yeah.
And
I'm going to get very passionate and animated, probably.
And I think, so I was thinking about this, and if it's okay with you guys, I think the best way to address it might be through the different ways that are affecting America, right? Like through economics, and then through like the social structure, and then through national security. Like I think that might be the easiest way to go about it, and then just kind of hit different things through there, you know? Because there's, I mean, if you look at all those things, there's like probably 10 or 15 different ways under all of those branches that they're trying to affect America. You know what I'm saying?
I think that's part of the problem when it comes to China is for a layman to understand China, it involves a lot of research and a lot of understanding about looking into different trade deals and it requires a lot of research to do. So I think the way you laid it out is a great way to kind of approach all these different subjects.
Yeah.
About why they're important and why we should be talking about them and why things are escalating the way they are and so on and so forth.
Does that sound good to you, Zeke?
Oh, yeah, sounds perfect.
And Zeke is kind of my resident China guy. Like I mean, you're obviously the salt of the street China guy. That's like your China and Russia are your big focuses. But like Zeke and I speak, but Zeke and I speak consistently about China. I mean,
I'm more or less newer to the China game, and I've been, because it spawned off the back of the Russia game.
Yeah.
Because I was a Russia guy for a long time, and now I'm a Russia and China guy.
Zeke's deep into China.
Dude, I love it. Yeah. Because it's very important.
Sending me articles from like the Japan Times, sources and shit that I've never even considered to like trying to find. Yeah, deep international shit that he's like, but have you seen this? And I'm like, fucking no, of course not. No, of course I haven't seen that.
Our media only covers certain things here, man. I picked up, Zeke, you don't know this, but we have a lot of random like newspaper editions throughout the studio. And one of them is a Japanese Times that Jordan's dad sent.
Oh, yeah.
Right. I picked that up the other day and I was just looking at some of the first like stories like, oh, wow, I totally forgot about all this. There's so much popping. And they're right next door. They're tapped into it, man.
It's been a crazy year. Like I was just a few weeks ago was listening to something in probably some podcast or something, and they were talking about like the impeachment just happening in January, you know, and I was like, no shit. Right? No fucking way. Like there's no way that was just in January. I feel like it's been so long since then, you know?
Well, back to back it was impeachment and then coronavirus.
Yeah.
It's like, we can't win. But
all that shit, it just you kind of missed a lot of shit during all those impeachment processes. Like, did you guys hear about what happened in New Zealand by chance?
Go ahead.
So back in 2019, I had no fucking clue this happened, but in 2019, there was actually a mass shooting in 2 mosques.
Oh,
yes. I had no clue about that shit.
I think
live stream and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had the privilege of watching that shit during my surface protection class in South Carolina. That was absolutely disgusting.
I can't even imagine.
Yeah, like, you would think people would leave the building. Nah, this guy was just mowing people down who were in corners, and he had a ridiculous amount of time. I don't want to get into the details of it, but
man,
like people need to rethink like how you know what do you say
like follow the information.
In an active shooter situation, you don't go into a corner. That needs to be that needs to be rethought.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I definitely wouldn't blame those people like that, because there's got to be a lot of shock involved and just being completely, confronted with an unreal situation.
While you're in church.
Yeah. But if you're not trained to know what to do there, then you're going to freeze up, you're going to do something stupid, and you might end up dead. I think, actually, I was listening to a podcast this morning, Zeke. I want to say it was probably the Ben Shapiro show, from Friday, and there was an ad read, I think, for the American Concealed Carry Association.
USCCA.
Yeah, there you go. And I guess part of signing up for that comes with like a free course in how to handle an active shooter situation if you're involved. And it might be more geared toward the concealed carry guys, but it's you just bringing that up made me remember that.
Well, and I've always found it very interesting, and Zeke, you can speak to this because we went to school together. There's a lot of people, especially under kind of the new narratives of gun control, that are like, how dark is it that our children are going through, mass shooter drills in school, and they're going through, active shooter drills in school and stuff like that. And I understand being bothered by the fact that that's necessary, but having grown up doing those things since, probably kindergarten, I think, is we started doing that type of stuff. Lockdown drills for sure, whether or not they were called intruder drills or active shooter drills, they were certainly lockdown drills, and it was always announced over the intercom, like, there's somebody on campus, this is what they're dressed like, everybody needs to stay in the classrooms, And so I have always felt that I would much rather my son have an idea of something to do rather than just be scared shitless because we just would like to hope that would never happen, And I don't personally feel like I was negatively impacted by being made aware that this is a possibility that could happen one day, What are your feelings on that?
At the time I was fine with that thought for sure, but after seeing what happened to those people, I was just like, those were just, they weren't just like men and women, they were children and...
Yeah. And I don't mean, not to interrupt you, but I don't mean necessarily the way that we were taught, but they're taught something, right? I certainly agree that maybe the method, what we're taught is not the best thing, but just the idea of having the information of what to do, not debating what that is, because I have no fucking idea what the best thing to do in a mass shooter drill, right?
That the training exists.
Right, but to have some information rather than we're just not going to do any type of drills or any type of preparation because we'd like to hope that's not going to happen.
Right. So, I guess
it's kind of a tough one.
It is tough, but I'd have to say I follow what the military would say, which is run, hide, fight. And that's probably something that they should probably teach kids. Now, how they would muster or like how they would meet in some undisclosed location, I don't know how that would work, but I guess in the grand scheme of things, I guess you'd be right.
Like it's kind of hard to say like we want that to take place because it's like, well, then we're kind of admitting that you're putting that seed in their brain. But at the same time, if it's happening, it's happening. And it wouldn't hurt to train.
Because it wasn't like school shootings weren't happening with the same frequency when we were in school, or at least when we were young in school as they were as we started to get into high school and out of high school, Towards the end, it felt like this shit was happening all the time, And like when we got out of high school, it felt like it's just constantly fucking happening. Whether or not that's the reality, that's what it felt like, And it was extremely rare when we were growing up that something like that was happening. Like there was one at Arminjar, when we were in school, that was accidental, was like a child who brought a gun to school and accidentally shot somebody. There's like, so I don't know, I agree. It's
tough.
Ideally, I would like that would never happen, but in a world where that does exist, where people can't always be expected to responsibly secure their firearms so their children and their family don't get access to them, I would rather my kid know what to do or have an idea of something to do rather than just shit his pants and have to sit there and hope he doesn't die,
It's like, if I take my kid out in the woods, I'm going to teach him how to do him or her or they.
Shut the fuck up.
I'm going to teach him about, like, what do you do if you get attacked by a bear?
Yeah.
Right. Knowing that, okay, ideally, you're going to do everything right beforehand so you don't get attacked by a bear or a cougar or something like that. But, like, I want you to know what to try to do if that were to happen. Odds of it happening are very, very extreme, but it might. just like with school shooting, a little different, obviously, but it's the same concept, I think, of the Boy Scouts,
Do you think,
stuff.
not to make light of the situation, but do you think there are more bear attacks or school shootings every year?
Ooh, I don't know. I have no concept. Probably more bear attacks.
No comparison. It doesn't tell us anything, but I'd be interested in knowing what the numbers are.
We'll see. The problem is with you think about, at that point you have a statistical problem. You have a statistical problem because the amount of people that are going to even open themselves up to be attacked by a bear is going to be incredibly smaller, I would imagine, than the amount of kids that go to school.
You think there are more students that attend school every year than there are people who do wilderness type shit every year?
That would be in an area
with bears.
Right, okay. That are doing...
Because you can do a lot of stuff outside, but there aren't bears.
Yeah. I mean, and every now and again, we see it all the time on like the Facebooks or something. Somebody in California will like come home or something, like, or go out to their car and there's a fucking black bear walking down the street. I mean,
right.
Most of those don't end in an attack, but they could as well.
So there's always a chance, obviously, for animals to like wander out of their general habitat.
Yeah.
But there are places in America where there's like, we don't have bears here.
Oh, like don't ask me that. I would imagine there's a lot of environments.
Bears are super common here.
There are a lot of like desert environments and stuff where I don't think bears.
Fatal bear attacks annually.
There you go.
Literally few.
Yeah. But the odds of you being attacked by a bear are significantly higher than the overall number of attacks per percentage of population, because there's a very, very, very small fraction of that population that actually exposes themselves to that every year.
Okay, so I want everybody to answer this question. It's totally random, so it's okay if you don't have an immediate answer for it. Are you on... Okay, not on a daily basis because we're not always in the woods, right?
Right.
But are you... Don't. Just wait until you hear the question. But are you actively more concerned that you would be in a situation in which there would be an active shooter? Or are you more concerned that you would be in a situation where you would be in a potentially dangerous altercation with a bear? Okay, yeah. Because you can have some interaction with a bear that are not potentially dangerous. Yeah, well, I guess they're all potentially dangerous, but some that are not in the end dangerous.
Yeah.
So I think you all understand what I'm asking here. So yes. Colin, you go ahead and go first, and then we'll ask Zeke.
I've seen lots of bears throughout my life, especially here.
And they come into people in neighborhoods and stuff. We at Brownsville got locked down because there was a bear, so that shit happens.
You got locked down because of a bear?
Bro, if there's a bear on campus, you can't have a 4-year-old kid, fucking 7-year-old kid. Yeah, it was it was walking through. Yeah. I guess I should have been more specific. Someone saw a bear miles away and we locked down. I will
just say this. There's an elementary school that you guys pass on your way to my house.
Yes.
Right? And when
Is that even still open?
There, I mean, not right now. But,
no shit.
Yes, children go to that school on a normal basis. But when I went to that school, because I went to that school when I was in elementary school.
Wow.
We had a lockdown probably about 3 or 4 times throughout my 6 years there. Grade 1 through, or K through 6 or whatever it was. I don't remember.
So 7.
Sure. Let's go with that. But multiple times where our campus would get locked down because somebody saw a cougar within the area.
General vicinity.
Yeah. So, I mean, shit like that happens.
So, are you more scared of a bear attack or an active shooter?
Active shooter. I know what to do with a bear. I know there's a lot of variables that I can somewhat control with a bear about, like, not even putting myself in that situation. But active shooters can happen anytime, anywhere.
Zeke?
Shit. I want to say active shooter as well.
Babe?
Are you shitting me?
Bear, active shooter.
Active shooter.
Carolina?
Yeah, I will be more afraid about a person than a bear.
I think that's probably pretty reasonable.
Probably.
I think that's pretty reasonable.
Are you just trying to show my point here in a very logical manner?
No, I just then was like, I wonder, because I've been around. I've been in a not a situation where I'm like I might get attacked by a bear, but in a situation where we were like hiking and there was like a bear like crisscrossing paths with us.
Nailed it.
Got him. And it like had a cub, you know, and so like, mama bears are like much more aggressive when they have their cub, you know. And and there was like a gang of us, so she's obviously less likely even then to attack, but because she has a cub, you know, shit happens. But and there was like a bunch of like adults and little kids and stuff, you know. So so I've been like in that, you know, and that was on like an established staircase in Cushman. I don't know if you've been there, but that's we were there. It's like a totally people camp there and shit. And so. But you know, by virtue of the fact I carry this gun, I would
that's a real thing too. I mean, because that happens to people.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah.
And just happenstance. But odds are nothing bad's going to happen. But if it does.
That's why I carry a big ass gun.
There you go.
Kill a bear and a person.
Dude, I didn't do my research on that 10 mil round, really. I didn't dive that much into it. Zeke, do you know much about the 10 mil?
He didn't. I was telling him that I have a 10 mil today, and he was like, do they even still make that? Fuck you, they still make a 10 mil. Absolutely they do. I fucking have one.
It's a fucking rare, bro.
So rare. Yeah.
So rare.
Super. I don't think I've met anybody else who owns one. Del Brico had one. My uncle Del Brico has one. But that's the only other person most people have been like, I've never shot a 10 mil before.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's because you a bitch.
That's because you a bitch.
I'm just kidding.
I mean, it is semi-comparable to a 45.
Yeah, it's just bigger.
Most people are be like, bigger fuck casing. That, just get a 45. But, I mean, realistically, it's like comparable to it. And
it's a powerhouse, bro.
Yeah. I mean, it'll fuck a bear up.
Oh, yeah.
I'd use that as a bear gun.
There's 15 of them, bro. Kill like 2 bears.
2 bears?
Yeah. I feel confident in that. You shoot a bear in the face with this.
In the face.
You know?
Yeah.
It's just 7 shots, right? What, 7.5 if you want to cut a bullet in half, right? We'll call it 8 for the one, 7 for the other one. I feel like if you can hit it in the face at least one time,
that's
true. Out of 7, that's a pretty good.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
You know?
You ever seen anybody get charged by a bear?
No.
Ooh.
No. Obviously, I'm thinking an ideal scenario, not in which you're like, oh my God, a bear, but where you're like, there's a bear, I'm going to draw my gun, now I'm being charged by a bear. You in a scenario where you would have time to fire 7 shots,
gotcha.
I would hope at least one of those could potentially hit it in the face.
Hard, yeah.
And if one of them did hit it in the face,
gotcha,
it would die.
There is a Zeke.
If you get attacked by 2 bears, you're fucked. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, basically. Depending on the size of the bear, you get attacked by 1 bear, you're fucked.
Certainly. Just shoot it 8 times.
Zeke, do you know who Steve Ranella is, and or the crew from Meat Eater? Used to be a show on Netflix called Meat Eater. They have a couple of seasons now.
It still is, yeah.
No, I'm not familiar.
Okay, it's a big hunting show, and it's very popular nowadays.
He's been on Joe Rogan before. He's a good guy.
Yeah, he's a good dude. But there's an episode that I have that is not available on Netflix right now that it shows a scene where they get charged by they get false charged by a mama bear grizzly and her cub, and it is terrifying.
Hey, Mom!
Yes. Oh, you've seen it. You've seen it then. That shit's terrifying.
I've seen the clip on YouTube, yeah.
It's like it's like 3 linebackers coming right at you.
Certainly.
Full charge, and he's going to tear you in half.
I'm not at all trying to mischaracterize a bear attack scenario. I am simply laying out an ideal bear attack scenario, as ideal as a bear attack scenario could be, in which you would have time to shoot a bear multiple times.
Yes.
Sound bites.
So good.
And I'm also talking like when I do dry fire like every time John and I work out, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And so I'm doing dry fire when we're working out so that my adrenaline's pumping, my hands are shaking to try and mimic a scenario in which I would be hyped up.
You are so fucking smart.
So I try and cut out.
That's brilliant, actually.
Yeah.
So
that's fucking
So after
phenomenal.
I deadlifted that 375, bro, picked up the AR, did some dry fire. So your blood is slamming you, your hands are shaking, yeah. And so
God, I
So
should do that with my fucking rifle.
And it's obviously only so much, you know, because there's still, you know, the recoil and everything you have to factor in, but you can get your trigger done, you can get all that stuff dealt with, you know, your breathing, all that stuff you can get sorted out in dry fire where your adrenaline is up, you know. So yeah, so I bring the AR over to John's and I dry fire every time we work out.
I'm bringing the Tika over to John's on Wednesday now.
So great, yeah.
Because that seems like a great way to do your rest period in between sets or something like that. Now you're working on mental focus. Fuck, bud.
And I just pick a spot. Like, they have a door on the other side of their garage, so I use the lock on the inside of the doorknob. You know, and so it's probably like 15 yards away, and I'll just use that for the red dot to dry fire on that. Yeah, just to help try and cut out that factor of the adrenaline that, like, I maybe wouldn't be prepared for, you know? So...
Fuck, I'm excited now. That's an amazing idea.
Also, if you're training like that, that's one factor cut out of those 7 bullets that you're more likely to hit a bear in the face.
We're gonna have
you're
to
dry firing when you're working out.
Get a hold of Terran Tactical and work that into a one of their tactical training runs. You got to do a fucking hardcore workout, and then you run the tac course. And then you do another rep, and then you run the tac course again.
Last week, I drew up like a core circuit of like a bunch of different core exercises and like some minor like arm stuff, and I had a bunch of dry fire written in between that, and that was really good.
Fucking a lot of them hardcore motherfuckers will be very proud of you right now.
That's the way to do it, bro. Yeah.
So, Zeke, this has been really fun. We within like 25 minutes went from, I don't even remember where we started now, to all we started hunting and dry fire drills while we're working out and shit.
Yeah.
But before we get too sidetracked, why don't you tell us and me, because I don't really know you very well, a little bit about yourself, where are you now? Where were you before? How'd you get there? And, because obviously you were here at one point, but now you're not.
Yes. Let me tell you a story about myself.
Yes.
Okay, so as you know, I used to go to the same high school as Donovan and even Jordan. Jordan, you went to Olympic High School, right?
Yes, I did.
Yes, she did.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So I went to high school with them. So
I've gone to school
that's where they.
Since kindergarten, by the way.
That's right. That's fucking right. I honestly, the last memory I have of Jordan was like in 2nd grade. Honestly,
this is so funny. I love it.
The look of disdain that you got when you asked, like, you went to Olympic High School, right? She was like personally offended that you had to ask.
I'm just fucking with you.
I love this show.
But yeah, so
I love it.
I graduated high school. I went to college at all that. Let's not get into that. Anyway.
We're not going to get into where you went to college.
You're just asking what I did since COVID, right?
Oh, word.
Well, you can say as little or as much as you want, because, like I said, Colin doesn't know. I have disclosed almost 0 things about you. So whatever you say now is exactly what Colin knows.
Well, let me rephrase my question real quick. We'll make it a little bit more directive. Because I know where you're at right now, but you just showed up there recently. But other than that, you haven't been in studio in person before, and I feel like if you lived here, you would. So where is it that you're living, general, you don't have to get too specific, and, why did you end up over there?
So, where I live now, where I moved was Indiana. I kind of left because, the cost of living over in Washington was getting a bit ridiculous for me.
Word.
It is insane.
Yeah. It's not getting any better.
Yeah. So I moved over there, and just to kind of get my, get the, I'm talking that bad. Just try to get the ground underneath my feet and get moving.
Just establish yourself.
And,
yeah.
Any reason why you picked Indiana?
We joined the military, right?
Went to college and joined the military. But the primary reason was that I had family over there.
Okay.
Like, I only had like a few cousins over here. I have a fuckload of family over there that could kind of help me get established, get property, and stuff like that.
Yeah, totally makes sense.
Yeah. So over there, as it turns out, there's a lot of manufacturing, like copper wire manufacturers, Subaru car manufacturers, Chrysler car manufacturers. I mean, there's the fucking works. Like, I just pick and choose. They can't find enough people to employ.
They left Detroit and went to Indiana.
Oh, yeah.
I'm guessing. I don't know. I'm just saying that. I don't know.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. So what I did prior to COVID was I worked at SIA. It was SIA is Subaru Indiana Automotive. This company manufactures cars, specifically Legacies, Imprezas, Outbacks, and Ascents.
I used to have an Impreza.
You have an Impreza?
Mm-hmm. 2008 Subaru Impreza, baby.
Yeah, that's a good model then.
It was. it was, and then I got rid of it because. I'm not going to talk shit about Subarus, bro. They're solid vehicles, just not for me.
Yeah, they're nice. They're nice. But so fun fact: we're only one of two manufacturers. The only other manufacturer is in Japan. They make the Foresters, the BRZs, WRXs, Crosstreks, and the STIs.
Wow.
So yes. So we have people who get us.
Ooh.
Like they make the parts, but we are like the only two plants that actually put those bitches together and get them out to lots.
Word.
That's pretty dope. So were you working on the line in there, or are you working more like pushing paper around, working at a desk and stuff?
Oh no! I can't do that. I gotta be hands on.
Yeah.
That kind of shit.
That's got to be pretty cool though these days. I've seen a few videos and stuff of these manufacturing plants. They seem incredibly high tech.
Oh yeah, it's freaking incredible. When I did my first tour, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. They told me that a Subaru was made every 2 minutes.
Damn.
Every 2 minutes, they are making $35,000, which is insane.
Fuck.
Yes.
Dude.
So
We should design a car, bro.
Yep. I know why Elon's getting into it. Fuck.
yeah, so that fucking crazy. And when I actually started working there, I learned each day we're making about 700 vehicles in 8 hours.
That is so crazy.
Yes. So it's a lot of cars.
And is the plant open 24 hours a day?
No. So we open, let's see. So the shift starts at 6 in the morning. First shift ends at 4 o'clock at the latest, and then they transition into second shift, which will end at 2 a.m. at the latest.
So pretty much.
That's
They're closed for 4 hours.
Yeah, that's the way Sage was
It
when I
gives
worked
a
at
little bit of
Sage.
time for maintenance people to oil up the machines, do a little bit of maintenance. For anything that was causing the line to stall out or whatever, they'll fix that up if they can within that period.
Yeah.
That's so wild because that is such a totally different experience in manufacturing than you experience in your manufacturing.
Yes.
But it's reminiscent because I worked at a fly fishing rod company for a little while, which was it was just like that, right? Everything was very, very focused on the numbers, and it was just we had 2 shifts, a couple hours of maintenance, but other than that, for the most part, the doors are never closed.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Yeah.
But that's fucking manufacturing, man. That
weird.
built America.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just fucking fast paced, and I haven't looked back since then.
So you still work there?
Say what now?
Do you still work there?
Yeah, I'm still currently employed with them. Right now I'm with them as a temp. So when I get back, I'll be with them as a full-time employee. So I'll be getting all their shares, their bonuses, their healthcare, the whole 9 yards. I got that in writing from them, thank God.
Well, that's dope.
So
Yeah, I remember that was one of the problems with some of the auto manufacturing strikes that took place probably a year ago. I remember we talked about them at the time, I think. But there's a lot of those, and even at Sage where I worked, there's most people that work there are temps, and then they work for a while, and then they get hired on full time, and that's when you're in the family at that point. You belong to the family. That's pretty dope. And so, but you also at one point joined the military.
Yeah, so back in 2015, November 11th, 2015 is actually when I joined. And to be honest, I was originally going to join the Army just because my cousin Erwin was trying to get me into the Rangers at the time. And
Irwin.
I didn't know jack shit about the Army, and they were trying to get me into like some sort of infantry job that I didn't want.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's
like,
the way the Army does
if I
it.
didn't make it as a Ranger, that I could get that, and I was like, yeah, I don't know.
That's how they get you.
Yeah, so let's hold on, because let's take a brief break, right? Because, not from the podcast, but from what you're saying, because he mentioned briefly, like, it's not a big deal. It's like, I thought maybe, like, I'll be a Ranger, you know, like, I can make it like that. So let's stop, right? Because Zeke is from a family of ridiculously athletic people. And at least, you know, and so when we were in school, I mean, he was like the first person that we knew to have abs and pecs and biceps and like an actual, like ripped up. I mean, he was like lifting more than everybody else. I mean,
You're like, oh, I could look like that?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. He was wrestling. Like, what did you wrestle at, Zeke? What weight?
Dude, wrestlers are always shredded. Always.
So I wrestled at 145, 160, and 170 pounds.
Where did you find the most success at?
I found my success at 170 pounds, and that was because I had found by my senior year I was performing better when I wasn't cutting weight.
Mm-hmm.
Like my sophomore year, I was cutting about 20 pounds before each match.
Oh.
Like 3 days, I would just not eat and just drink minimum amounts of water, run obscene, just run. I would run from my house to Olympic, back, and do about 10 laps around Steel Creek. You know where Steel Creek is, Dominic?
Yes. Yeah.
I do about 10 laps around there, run the hills until I was satisfied with where my weight was. And it was just a miserable experience.
I remember watching them in the schools in full, you know, sweatsuits running the entire school for hours. I mean, like, as a wrestling team, that was like they were organized, and then he would do his own shit outside of that. It was
fucking
savagery.
Wrestlers, I feel, are like that. They're the. I mean, a lot of we don't have MMA and stuff in high school, obviously, right? So like, pretty much anybody who wants to be a fighter, I think, is probably getting into wrestling. So Zeke, given the 170 range, given all the people that were participating, I don't know how many categories of, you know, weight classes and stuff they are. Would that be like a heavyweight category, a midweight, or?
It would be like a middleweight.
Okay.
Like 160, like 152 to 170 is kind of like the middleweight-ish, and then, you know, from 82 and up is kind of the heavier echelon of people.
Okay. Well, shit. How tall were you at this point?
Oh God, I was I think I was 5'8", 5'9".
Okay. So that seems pretty good, right? You don't have to be like, you're not like 6'4" and have to be like 170 skin and bones.
No.
Okay.
No, he's stacked. That's where we're going with this. We're going to talk about how much you lift, right? Because that's an important factor of why we're talking about this. So
hopefully the picture he sends us in his Salt of the Streets gear will show how fucking
the shirt's probably too small. Yeah. So so how much when you go to the gym, right? And I know that like we were talking about you having a hard time going to the gym. Well, a lot of gyms and shit are closed right now. The last time that you proper lifted, how much were you lifting as far as like squat, bench, deadlift?
Oh gosh, when I was actually lifting, so I measure my shit in powerlifting. So if I was, let's say, I was power cleaning about 275 pounds. I was squatting about 455 comfortably about 5 times, and then my bench was at best about 275. My bench was by far my weakest.
Yeah,
but at least in those categories, that's where I have been. I have been lifting terribly seriously lately, but that's where I had left off.
What's your personal record as far as deadlifts and all that? That's those masses.
My deadlift, I have to improve on my deadlift. My best deadlift is I think it's 355 pounds. That ain't shit, dude.
Oh no, I just beat that last week.
Oh yeah, because you did what, 375?
375.
Woo!
Now, do you do a double over grip or do you do an over under grip?
It's double over.
Oh, okay. So like,
you do double over?
Yeah.
That's different.
Attaboy. Yeah, I can't do over under grips anymore. I'm just kind of afraid I might tear my bicep if I like lift it wrong.
Oh yeah. Ooh.
Yeah.
Man, y'all play around with some heavy ass weight. That's weight with consequences.
When I prefer to deadlift sumo too, so it's like a wide stance as opposed to a narrow one. John does a lot of like Roman deadlifts, and so it's like a super narrow stance. And it's like way more like hamstring and ass involved.
Them fucking Romans, bro.
But I like the sumo deadlifts a lot. I'm just tall. It's more comfortable to be a little more spread out.
I feel like I might have to go that route.
For sure.
Wife's over there shaking her head. Yes, don't fucking destroy your back.
Yeah.
Do the wide stance.
Yeah, we'll get you. You will get you a weight belt too, because you'll fuck yourself up real quick if you're not belting up your back.
Oh shit! I was just at Big Five yesterday. I should have gotten a weight belt. I didn't think about
You
it.
can get one for like $25. They were like a nice leather one from that.
Yeah, they seem pretty good quality, pretty affordable. All right. So anyway, sorry.
Yeah, just wanted everyone to know what a monster this guy was.
Word. So Zeke, you were on track to be a ranger. You were looking. Your cousin, was it? It was your cousin trying to get you to be a ranger?
Irwin.
Yeah, Erwin.
They all have weird ass names.
Steve.
I was just kind of, I don't know, I was still kind of wishy-washy. I was like wishy-washy with joining the military for like 2 years.
I get that.
And he was like, yeah, I was like, if I'm going to join the military, I'm going to be like a badass, that kind of thing. And Erwin's like, oh, you want to be a badass? Why don't you be a ranger?
I remember that.
Yeah, fuck yeah, man, I'll be a ranger, that kind of shit.
I was going to be a sniper when I was like 16 years old. That's how it was going to work. I'd be a total badass.
Fucking works.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, I guess, I don't know, it didn't work out that way. And ironically enough, the Navy office was right across.
Oh, yeah. They're convenient.
Isn't that always how it works? Aren't they always conveniently attached?
That's what they do.
Yeah.
It's because no matter what, the DOD, they get you. They're just, okay, we might get you on that one. We might get you on this one.
Oh, they wouldn't take you? Come in here, man. We'll talk to you.
Yeah. 100%. Two of the guys that I went to MEPS with, so you know what MEPS is, Zeke. It's like the entry and processing thing, right? When two of the guys that had signed up to go into the Coast Guard with me at that time, both kind of didn't do so well on their tests, I guess, that day or the day before. And so they got the results and were like, oh shit, I guess I can't join the Coast Guard anymore. And the Army was like, hey, we would totally take you. And then they went to the
Good
fucking
enough
Army.
for us.
They went on a bus to boot camp the next morning.
Oh my god.
That's how desperate they were at the time. I don't know if it's still that way.
That's horrible.
But that's the way they do that shit, man. So you want to serve? We'll make you could serve. You somewhere.
We'll take you. We'll take you so hard. We'll take you right now.
I need to ask you, Colin.
Mm-hmm.
I never in my entire adult life have I ever seen a Coast Guard office. Where the fuck is it?
It's okay. So on that point, the Coast Guard doesn't want your ass. They don't need you. You got to go in there and fucking impress them, and they're like, "All right, we might consider you." Right? So there's an office in Tacoma area. I don't exactly remember where.
They're not as prolific as all the other ones.
Hard no. There's not. There's very few. I think there's 3 in the state. At least when I was looking, I haven't looked in a long time. But there was like one in Tri-Cities, one in Tacoma. And I guarantee you there's probably one like Spokane or something like that.
Is it harder to get into?
Oh, yeah.
Why?
It took me a year and a half of like private medical visits and stuff to be accepted in because I had a single imperfection in my body. And they were like, nope, we don't want you. Sorry.
Why is it harder to get in?
It's smaller service. There's a lot less requirement to fill the ranks.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa.
But luckily, one of my best brothers out there. So shout out Jay Hines. He is a buddy I serve with at one unit, and he's actually a recruiter now. So I get to talk to him and stuff every now and again. And we talk about a lot of different things, but he always keeps me up to date with what's going in the what's popping in the Coast Guard ranks these days. It's very nice.
Yeah.
And now we got Zeke here. He's gonna be our intel for what he's doing now.
Oh shit!
So you ended up joining the Navy, but not necessarily the.
Yep.
Did you do any active duty time?
No, I joined strictly as reserves. So I wanted to be like a SEAL and shit, but turns out I'm colorblind.
Oh, isn't that a bitch? Because you don't know.
Isn't that how it goes?
Most of the time, you don't know.
Yep. So they said, "Oh, well, sorry, kiddo. You know, you can't be a SEAL." It's like, "Oh, can I be an EOD?" No. I asked if I could be a SWIC. No. So I finally got to like what I could be, and they gave me like 3 sheets of paper. One was like a CB, a machinery repairman, and like a welder, like an HT.
Oh yeah.
And so I just looked at what they did, and I was like, okay, I already kind of do CB work. I kind of know how to do welding already, so let's do machinery repairman work. It looks cool, and it's applicable to the outside world.
Hell yeah.
So
that's what you do now?
Let's do that. Yes, sir. So it's I'm going to be completely honest. I haven't done that job since A school. I still go to subs, I still do installations, and I still mess with the mills and stuff, but I have to be supervised still.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been at least 4 years since you've actually done that job.
Yeah, like in the reserves, they don't have any shops for you in reserves, which fucking sucks.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So that's just the job you would have should something happen and you're transition to active duty in the life of your contract.
Exactly. So it's my responsibility to like keep reading the books, keep remembering the formulas, what kind of what to do with certain metals if certain metals get acid treatments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, stay up on your quals.
What a fucking weird.
Exactly.
Yeah.
America's a weird goddamn place, man.
Yeah, the reserves especially gets really weird because you may join.
The reserves is a fucking weird place.
It is definitely a weird place, and the Coast Guard reserves, bro, that is a strange place because they would come in like we would have reserves because I was active duty, right? The reserves would come in on their one weekend in the month, right? And they would kind of offset us. But it was so weird because it was like they would just kind of take over for a little while, but like we'd all still have to be around and like
they don't really know what
because they weren't fully qualified and all this stuff. It takes so long for an active duty member to hit these quals. It takes you like your first 3 to 6 months to a unit to become fully qualified and everything you got to do, and all that basically means is that you could do it by yourself,
right?
And now so 3 to 6 months straight of you being full active duty. That's your only job. Your only focus is to get qualified. Now you do that only one weekend in a month. It takes a long fucking time.
That's so weird.
Yeah. Because the qualifications, I guess I should ask you that. Are the qualifications that you are required to get the same as the active duty members?
Fuck no.
Oh, fuck no.
I love it.
Hell fucking no.
That's great. So are they better? Are they more strict or less strict?
Oh, they're way less strict. Like
right
now I'm currently active, and they're only lenient because of the whole COVID situation. Like right now I'm just quarantined in this immaculate fucking hotel. But once I get out there, I would imagine they're going to be a lot more on my ass about my uniform. Being on point, getting to my duty station on time, that kind of shit.
Yeah, so
reserves, man, they don't really care a whole lot about that shit.
So share with us as much as you would like to about your current situation.
Okay, so
we start by asking what time it is over there.
It's fucking midnight out here, dog.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so where I'm currently at is Manama, Bahrain. I'm just a few miles away from Isa.
Man,
yeah, it's like right next to Qatar's, south of Iran.
Okay, word.
Yeah, so without getting too into detail about what my mission is going to be when I get to Dubai, basically I got picked up based on basically my self-defense skills, like with wrestling and karate. Like, I don't know if you guys know this, but I also have credentials in Kempo. Like, I'm actually a black belt in Kempo.
I fucking totally forgot all about that. I was so focused on him being so fucking yoked that I totally forgot that I completely forgot.
So he's not just shredded, but he can murder you with his hands.
Yeah.
Cool.
He's not even into guns. He'll still murder you.
All right.
But I also found out.
never going to shit
I also
talk Zeke
found out
ever.
that he's extremely good, an extremely good marksman. Because
That
he
is
had to
awesome.
qualify for all this shit before he left. So he's deadly on multiple plays. Yes.
Beautiful.
Exactly. Like their only flaw with me was that I had to shoot well, like a sharpshooter to get this job in. So when I got to South Carolina, I got that with the M16 and the M9.
Nice.
And so they're like, "All right, yeah, you're good to go, man." I was like, "Sick." So yeah, I'll be out here, and yeah, I'll be at the embassy. What I'll be doing there, I don't think I'm at liberty to say, but that's where you'd be able to find me.
That's where you'll be able to find me. Should you find yourself in Dubai,
All right.
you can find me at the embassy.
I'm going to go on a field reporting trip, and I'm going to go swing by Dubai. No worries. Don't ask why I'm there. I'm just going to check in.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it'll more specifically, it's I'll probably be bouncing between Jebel Ali and Fujairah. That's kind of where I'll be bouncing around doing my security detail.
Yeah.
Oh, word. Okay. I literally have Google Maps open because I need to have some kind of reference of what you're talking about, and I'm not doing so bad.
So if you're in Dubai around the embassies and you plan on doing bad shit, at least one of these guys can murder you in more than one way.
Absolutely.
All of them can shoot you really good, but at least one of them murdered you with his hands. So,
right.
Watch out.
Yeah. What I need to do is be doing what you were doing, Donovan, is working out and fucking working on my dry fire, because that shit was fucking me up.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
where
what
did you get this idea? Did you just come up with yourself? Or
No.
Okay. This is amazing.
T-Rex Arms, guy named Lucas Botkin, right? So shout out to T-Rex Arms.
My brother just got a package from T-Rex Arms the other day.
They make a lot of really great stuff, a lot of good products. They started out making holsters, but now they also make plate carriers, and you can buy really expensive plates and stuff through them. But they also make a bunch of videos online. A lot of the videos I see about radios, those are through T-Rex Arms.
That guy.
The company's owned by a bunch of brothers.
Dudes, by the way. Great videos. 3 brothers.
Isaac, David, and Lucas. Their family's obviously very religious. And so they're all homeschooled and stuff. And then Lucas started the company by making holsters and shit. And now he makes all these videos online about different guns that he owns and different equipment and testing different stuff, reviewing different stuff, and also instructional videos on different drills that you can do. He is not... he's not a qualified instructor. He doesn't have any certificates or anything, but military units, police units will go to him to get training to improve their skills. And so he's
a private consultant.
He's good enough at what he's doing, yet that he's paid consistently to instruct people on how to do. Yeah, so he makes all these videos, and he's always talking about dry fire and just do the best with what you can and become an expert at your house. You don't need to have a fuckload of money to be an excellent shooter, and so that's dry fire. I dry fire 3-4 times a week in the living room after Dax goes to bed, just take out the AR or the pistol. I mean, now 3 times a week for sure at John's, but
you can do that without you can practice on your weapons without having to go to the range if you're a responsible gun owner who unloads and all this stuff, and you do all your safety checks. There's nothing wrong with pulling the trigger on a dry gun like that.
Yeah, and it
it's
definitely
probably great training
for nothing else, if nothing else, but to learn your trigger better. Just to learn the trigger pull, the reset, all that. To be able to do draws out of your holster, especially if you're talking about doing concealed carry stuff. You and I have been talking about that, Zeke. So that's something I'll do regularly, is just with an empty gun, just work out of my holster under my shirt, and stuff like that, just so that I know when I draw and I present, my sights are going to be lined up, and I don't have to worry about taking 3 seconds to line everything up. So
yeah, you don't got that. You don't got a whole lot of time. You need to be able to act quick and shoot accurately.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's one of the last times that Jordan and I went shooting, I did a lot of stuff out of the holster, and I'm we go shooting in the woods and stuff a lot as opposed to shooting ranges, because the one closest to the house, like, you can't work out of your holster there and shit like that. So we'll just go to the woods. I was telling last time Jordan I was shooting, I did a lot of work out of the holster, out of the woods.
Oh, yeah.
That's
I'm
getting
good.
good.
A lot of people forget about.
Yeah.
There's a knack to making a gun ready.
Mhm.
You know, that's why one of the things I was thinking when you were talking about dry firing while working out is, with a hunting rifle, and I would imagine any rifle at this point, it's just like a bow. The minute you want to draw back, the minute you want to get ready to shoot, you should be able to do that unconsciously to get in the same exact position every single time. So you pull out your pistol, and you land in the same place every time.
Side alignment, exactly.
Damn. Well, this is dope, man. You're going to go see the fucking Palm Islands and shit out there in Dubai. I wonder how much...
I'll be doing all the touristy stuff. All the shit's open over there. Like, there's no restrictions out there.
That's so cool.
You gonna drive some sick-ass cars?
Fuck, we're actually not allowed to drive vehicles. We have to take cabs and shit.
What the fuck?
Whoa. Really? That seems...
That's horseshit.
Interesting. The odds, I wonder why, like, I would think you wouldn't want to get for, like, operational security and stuff. I feel like you probably wouldn't want to get in a cab versus, like, drive yourself someplace. Yeah, I wonder what the thinking is on that. That's really interesting.
I'm sure we'll get briefed on who exactly is driving the cab. I would imagine it's someone that has higher credentials than myself.
Yeah. But they might have somebody like, here, you call this company because we've already done the checks. They're good.
These are the people who will do the driving.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No,
it's amazing. Whenever you go someplace, man, the amount of intel they can drop on you to make sure that you act and move correctly through the area. Even if you're going on like a place on vacation. If it's a hot zone, you might get briefed before you go on vacation.
Well, when Trenton, my friend Trenton works in the shipyard, and he went to Saudi Arabia like last year, I think, and he had that same deal. Yeah, there was like a whole week of like classes they did of like, this is the way you need to conduct yourself while you're in this country. You're no longer in America. You don't get to do what you want. That's not how it works anymore.
A lot of Americans don't understand that.
Yeah,
like I get into
Trenton was scared.
It's weird, man. I gained a great amount of knowledge. Hard to say that. A lot of hard G's.
Yeah.
When I went to Europe, when I went to Europe right after high school and stuff, because even in like Western civilizations and stuff, how those societies act and how the people move in those societies is totally different than ours.
Yeah.
And if you go over there acting like that fucking dumb American that's so stereotypical everywhere, like, you don't do that. You don't have to do that. You should study up on where you're going before you go. And I like the fact that the military does that to their people, because we operate in a lot of places.
Yeah.
Think about Germany. The amount of, because we had that news that Trump was he wants to pull people out of Germany and all this stuff that we might talk about later. But like, before you go to Germany, you got to get briefed up on how to live in German society.
Right.
It's not just like places like the Middle East. We're everywhere, man. We are all over the globe. And it's good that the military does that, though.
So let me ask you this, Zeke, and then I think we'll start talking about China. Because you're you're just a generally pretty level-headed guy. Like, your demeanor is pretty calm. Is that, based on the people that you deployed with, do you think that's something they were looking for in the people they were sending? Is people that are just, like, chill, for lack of a better term?
Yeah, so the general, what they were looking for in general was master arms, like military police kind of personnel, basically people who could do gate watch and next level kind of shit, the stuff that I'll be doing. I wish I can get into more detail about that. But,
no, that's all right. You only say as much as you can.
They are looking for people who can, like, I'm pretty stoic in let's just say like a high, like a critical situation. Like I'm like inside, I'm like freaking out, but like outside I'm calm and I'm actually able to perform better in those situations, if that makes sense. It's kind of, it seems weird, but
totally do it. It's those people that in an emergency can stay calm outwardly, and that calms everyone else around you. And you might be freaking out on the inside, But at the same time, everybody being calm, the entire situation stays calm. It's a lot easier to handle everything.
Right.
So those people are assets.
Right. So like when I was dealing with a scenario at South Carolina, we were dealing with a terrorist situation. Like I had no idea what the fuck I was doing, but somehow I was able to detain the person and get our people out safely without any casualties. I don't know how the fuck I did it. I was just reacting, to be honest. But
Well, that in itself, right there, that speaks volumes to why it would be you, not someone else, because you still acted the correct thing out while you were, under pressure at that point.
right.
So, can I ask you, while you were going through this time, I guess was it training essentially, or was it, was there some form of like a test related to this where if you didn't pass, you weren't going, or was it just kind of generalized training?
It was kind of generalized training. There's a group of people that were going to Isa, Djibouti, and Dubai.
Djibouti.
That was generalized training done by the Army, where they were running us through similar situations in my surface protection class, where they were running us through, certain scenarios with, terrorists, or if our Humvees got, rolled over or whatever. But they got into more specific stuff when I got into the Navy portion. But again, it wasn't. There was no real test per se. It was more like, if you made mistakes, this was the place to make it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, Djibouti, man, I didn't realize Djibouti's all the way on like the southwestern tip of Yemen. I think the Middle Eastern chunk there, the very southwestern tip. There's the Red Sea. Was it the Red Sea? I want to be right about that. The Red Sea that separates Africa and like the Middle East. It's right on that tip where the two almost connect like that.
That's interesting.
So, I mean, you're spreading out. I mean, you got, where Dubai is.
Yeah.
Just south of Iran.
Yeah, man.
Middle Eastern Peninsula.
Yeah.
And then, we got some good coverage down there.
Yeah.
Yo, buddy.
Yeah.
Damn.
Word. So there's one thing that I want to talk about right before we move on to China, just because it happened while we were here. So I just want to mention it. Not that this show's live.
Breaking news or what?
Yeah. And so Donald Trump held a press conference just in the time that we were here, and he signed some executive orders because the talks for the stimulus packages have been stalled, right?
Yeah.
They're unable to figure anything out. So this is from the Kitsap Sun, this article. It says, speaking from his golf resort in Bedminster, Trump said his orders would provide an additional $400 per week in unemployment benefits, suspend payments on some student loans through the end of the year, and protect renters from being evicted from their homes. Trump also said he would instruct employers to defer certain payroll taxes through the end of the year for Americans who earn less than $100,000 a year. And it looks like that is it.
Wow.
Two executive orders. There's obviously expected to be a plethora of legal challenges, which just seems stupid as fuck. Like, I get it in the long term, so we'll just take a second, right?
Okay.
So we'll take a second.
second.
I kind of decided while we were talking about this whole show is just China. So we'll talk about this for a moment, and we'll just devote the rest of it to China. And whatever we get to after that is whatever we get to.
There you go.
So we'll address this for a moment, right?
There's a lot of China, so that's perfectly fine.
We'll go around the triangle. Initial thoughts, right? My initial thoughts, obviously, I understand the long-term concerns of extending executive power even further, right? But I'm also torn with, just get the shit done, At a certain point, we need to have something done so there isn't just a continued patchwork of 1 week slap-ons of we'll do this for one more week, this for one more week, this for one more week. At least this is listen, I'm just doing this through the end of the year, and then you guys handle it legislatively, and this we can rescind. So I'm super torn, on the immediate good of there's a lot of people that need this money. That's the one thing from what I've seen that's like bolstering the economy is people having money that they can spend on things.
Yes.
You know? And that money being taken away, the lack of stimulus checks, you know what I'm saying? Like, so I'm real torn, you know, on that.
Yeah, because it's like you're torn on the executive involvement, but also excited to be like, yeah, the fuck, thank you.
Exactly.
Thank you, love. I saw you were empty on your beer. I had to order up some new beers. I had to tell the lovely waitress.
What do you think about that, Zeke?
Well, to be honest, I'm kind of torn. Maybe not. Not for the same reasons, though. It's more like I greatly benefited from getting the first stimulus check.
Yes,
a lot of people did.
In the sense that I was able to pay my mortgage and, you know, keep afloat until I got sent out.
Yeah. Okay. So let's. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, and then I'm going to ask you about your shutdown experience, or you can even talk about that now if you want during your answer.
That's okay. So, I'm grateful for it, but at the same time, I don't feel like the government needs. I want almost like an Andrew Yang kind of thing done about it, because the more we're printing out money and just bailing people out, I like the idea of people having money in their hands, but not from the government. You know what I'm saying?
Because where's that money come from, Zeke? How do they get that money to get to you?
Oh, out of the stimulus checks?
Yeah, where does that money come from? It all comes from somewhere.
Comes from us, right?
Exactly. Right. And that's not a good situation, economically speaking. At this point, whatever the fuck, we already did $8 trillion.
If it's not backed by some type of tax, you know, and I'm
just making more money. Fuck
I find myself in that same place of being torn between, like, is this the time after all this? Is this really the time to, you know, to be like, but the deficit, you know, it's like, but I don't know. I have no idea. You know, this is such
Can I go now?
Yeah, your turn.
I have my feelings on this. So there's two ways I would look at this, right? There's a political sense, because it isn't, because the November is right around the corner.
A lot of people talking about the election.
And I would say, okay, cool. So how did all this come down? Because essentially Trump at this point is passing his own, like, little version of a stimulus because the Congress can't agree on anything because they just walked away from it.
Yeah.
Again. And so he's passing his own little version of a stimulus, which came via an executive order, which we have seen a plethora of very, very far-reaching executive orders that have come down very, very recently, most of which we'll get to when we talk about China.
Which, at its root, is still constitutionally questionable. A lot of people are still very uneasy about the executive order, just to put that out there, not to interrupt you.
So, we take that, but then we take it, what is being done, right? And at this point, I've given up all hope that we have any kind of fiscal responsibility anymore at this point on a government level, because you literally cannot print. Now, what was the dollar amount attached to that, or did it have that dollar amount?
They're just an executive order, so I'm sure that if you look at them, it does. But
so it has a dollar amount attached to it, which probably is at least $1 trillion, because I know that's the number Congress has been, that's been presented, $1+ trillion,
especially with what you're losing in payroll taxes.
Yes, and so you pass this, and why not? We're just going to print off some more fucking money. It's all ones and zeros at this point. If modern monetary theory has allowed us to live with this kind of deficit for this long, maybe it really doesn't fucking matter anymore.
With almost negative inflation somehow.
And at that point, again, like Zeke brought up, he feels like more comfortable, I would imagine, like the way you answered that, Zeke, correct me if I'm wrong, but like with more of a basic income type of situation,
a tax-driven
like a very
UBI.
Yes, a UBI, an Andrew Yang type of thing, right? Because that's essentially what we're doing. We are offsetting the American taxpayer's wallet because of the COVIDs.
Right. This just isn't backed by anything.
It's just not backed by anything anymore. So whatever, you're still putting money in people's
pockets.
Other than
the Treasury.
So at this point, if the government cannot get you a $1,200 check, Andrew Yang's thing was $1,000. If they cannot get you one within, say every 30 days, so that you can actually pay rent or pay your mortgage on time, then what are we even trying to do this anymore? If this is what's okay, we're just going to float people all this money. So say fuck it. Let's consolidate the entirety of the social safety net, the entirety of all that, and then just cut every fucking American a single check, go full on UBI. Done. We're done fucking around at this point. Now we're just doing it really, 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 really bad.
Double-digit unemployment, and even a lot of people who are employed are like still losing hours. Like they're still like, I'm in a much better place I was than at like the bottom of this, but I'm still not back to where I was before, So it's
this will create an entire new sectors of economy as people are forced to not work their typical jobs. It's going to affect the economy, and people will adapt and change, but getting through that point is, I don't know how you do that.
If Donald Trump wins the election, he should bring Andrew Yang in to his next administration. Just be like, okay, run the UBI program.
Right? Let's just change out Pence. Let's just change out Pence.
That's the way to do it.
But yeah, that would be my answer. Is I'm uncomfortable with it, but at the same time, it's like, well, if we're going to play this game, I'm glad, just fuck it. I don't care how it gets done anymore. The executive power is an issue, but this is not the hill to die on for executive power. We've already crossed that hill multiple times.
And I feel like that's almost like the executive power thing has branched out into so many different sectors of government that it's almost like a larger action you have to take, a law that needs to be passed through the legislative branch of like, these are all the things the executive branch cannot do anymore. Like all this stuff.
No more.
We've teamed up with the Supreme Court to decide what they think is really in, constitutional bounds, and you cannot do this stuff anymore. All this stuff is not okay.
All the alphabet soup agencies, like there would be so many of those that would not exist tomorrow. If we decided to do this totally executively, constitutionally against the executive, reigning in the executive power again. Most of these things wouldn't be okay anymore because they're all run through the executive branch. The fucking goddamn president is I don't want to say dictator because, Orange Man bad and all that good stuff, but like the amount of executive power, Zeke, that the president has is highly disturbing in a country that is supposed to be run by us, the people. Does that make you slightly uncomfortable?
Yeah.
Especially under we'll keep it like kind of framed to that stimulus idea there, but especially as it concerns to the stimulus, like you could be accepting of it, but still be real torn about whether or not it's okay. If that makes sense.
No, that makes sense. I got you.
Okay. So let's put it this way. Since we're still kind of in the Middle East, and I did want to hit one topic before we moved on to China, and that was Beirut. You and I had kind of touched on it the other day when we first talked the other day, but you're over on that side of the world, and although Beirut in Lebanon is kind of on, it's way north from you. It's a continent almost divided from you. But has there been any noticeable change that you've been able to experience there? Are people talking about it? Are you even able to talk to people really?
I'm not really able to talk to people about it here. What I have noticed is that a lot more prayer things have been going on lately.
Mm-hmm.
It plays on their 1MCs. I can hear it in my building. Like I'm on the 15th floor, and it plays all throughout the city, like their prayers and stuff.
The call to prayer. I forget how many that goes on multiple times a day, if I'm correct, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep, and it's going on more frequently because of that, and it's. I don't know, that situation is kind of hard to digest because the emotions are so high still over there.
Oh yeah,
and you're still trying to get to the bottom of what's going on. Like what, from my understand, from the Lebanese government is that they're fairly corrupt. It was mishandled ammonium nitrate, and it caused the explosion. You guys don't deal in speculations, right? I don't know if I want to speculate on what they were.
Well, let's do this real quick, because like you were just talked about, there really isn't that much that we do know at this point.
Right.
But we do know a few things because the governments of, say, Israel has come out and basically said that they didn't have anything to do with it. There's been speculation on whether it was an attack versus it was an accident, right?
Because I've seen just from and videos are videos, right? But there's all kinds of videos coming out now, and so there's some people that are like, "Oh, this is a missile dropping down," and so who knows if they're doctored, who knows if they're whatever, there's all kinds of different theories that are coming out because there's people, obviously that don't believe Israel, that don't believe all the people that have come out, and so
and the Lebanese government isn't exactly one I would necessarily, say has that much honesty or trustworthiness, And even if they did, even if they are being honest with what they say, who knows how much actual control they actually have over their government to actually know what's truly going on.
Yeah.
And so even the official stories that we're getting right now, which all indicate that it was an accident, the 2,750 tons of ammonium nitrate that had been sitting in this fucking warehouse for a number of years.
Like 6 years, I think.
Yeah. And then it's just, and so basically, if you haven't seen the videos, if you're listening or watching, go stop what you're doing right now and go find the videos because they speak to the volume of why this is so important. Because a giant ass fucking bomb just wiped out like a mile of a major metropolitan city.
Yeah.
And if it was an accident, this is probably one of the worst accidents to ever happen on the history of the planet. The explosion is insane. And the fallout from that has been absolutely insane.
Yeah.
People, just the devastation is beyond telling. But, because of where it is, in Beirut, in Lebanon, there's a lot of speculation about what actually happened. And the official information is very sketchy at this point. But the official narratives coming out of multiple countries, including Lebanon, that it was 100% an accident that should not have happened because there was a failure in the bureaucracy somewhere to make sure this stuff wasn't here or it wasn't properly stored or something.
Right.
So taking that essentially as what we know at this point. We've seen the videos and we've seen pictures that date back to way before this explosion happened of this ammonium nitrate sitting in the
enormous
warehouse.
sacks of it.
Yeah, they're called super sacks. These things, they're giant.
Yes,
they fit on they're designed to fit on a pallet.
Oh,
a standard pallet that you can just put the sideboards up on, and they put like all sorts of small shit in there.
Super sack.
Yeah, super sacks. But a whole warehouse full of them. They've been sitting there for 6 years, supposedly, whatever. And whether there was a bomb-making factory on the inside of it, which would not be out of the realm of possibility, there's no evidence, obviously, especially now.
Or even just hidden arms. I've heard a lot of question about that, of hidden arms, hidden bombs within it, underneath it, potentially, all kinds of different stuff.
But even on the facts that we do know, the fact that they had that emergency grain silo right next to it, which is now, it's just got grain everywhere. It's just half of it is devastated. There's a giant fucking hole in the port where the port used to be. And you can see the before and after satellite pictures, and it is fucking devastating.
Yeah.
Like, there's real life consequences to this. 80%, I think this was from the Prime Minister himself, 80%, or the Trade Minister from Lebanon, that 80% of Lebanon's imports come through that port.
Oh, shit.
And now the port's not there.
Yeah.
So, but whether or not it was, at this point, I feel like we've laid the facts out, or at least I've laid the facts out. Sorry, I've been on a monologue.
No. You knew way more than I did. So
those are the facts. Now let's speculate a little bit.
Yeah.
Given those facts as background.
Yeah.
Zeke, what's going on over there? Speculatively. 100% opinion and speculation.
I'd like to pose a question to you guys first, is why did that building have that much fucking ammonium nitrate?
Well, so actually the New York Times just released a story, I think yesterday, talking about this ship that was sailed into Beirut 7 years ago. And then
7 years ago.
What we found.
Yeah.
But this is the first time I've seen 7 years. I've always heard 6 years at this point. But maybe a leaky ship arrived in Beirut port in November 21st, 2013 at 11:27 a.m. It was loaded with 2,750 tons of ammonium nitrate, which was delivered to have, which is believed to have blown up the La Porte, blah, 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 on August 4th. They're just going through. They're speculating now on this one ship coming in at the same time that carried it. And now they're just going to kind of speculate. I'm not going to talk about the details of that without getting into the article.
What is it used for? What is this chemical used for?
Ammonium nitrate can be used for a lot of things. It could be used as fertilizer to replenish the nitrates in the soil.
Okay.
I think for the most part, it's a relatively stable
So this is what's in fertilizer that you can use to make a bomb out of fertilizer.
And this is what you make a fertilizer bomb out of. This is the same stuff that left the gaping hole in the Oklahoma City bombing.
Yeah.
The same thing, except that was, I think, 3 tons.
Oh, I couldn't tell you.
I can't remember how much it was. But
There's
it was like
another
a fraction.
time they were talking about on Timcast, another time where a similar amount of ammonium nitrate had exploded.
In Texas.
That's what it was.
Killed hundreds of people.
So,
but
I don't know.
It's very primarily used in the manufacturing and selling of improvised explosive devices in the Middle East.
Yeah, and I don't know enough.
Just because it's so readily available, though.
Yeah.
That's all.
And I only know so much about Middle East relations. You know what I'm saying? Pertaining mostly to Saudi Arabia, because that's my... Saudi Arabia is to me as Russia is to you. So
indeed, that's
I'm not sure. That's why. What are your thoughts on this, Zeke? Because I didn't. Yeah.
Oh, with Saudi Arabia relations?
No. With this stuff in the port.
Now, what would you think happened? Pure speculation.
Well, I do believe it was an accident. I don't think this was a terrorist attack by any means. Are we still speculating?
Yes.
My speculation is that because based on this government's track history with their dealings with terrorists, because you guys know that these guys have been heavily sanctioned in the past, right?
And there's a lot of questions about involvement with like Hezbollah and stuff like that.
Yeah, they are one of the main suppliers of Hezbollah's equipment.
So I would speculate that they were holding some of this for some terrorist organizations to sell it to them at a high price, because this isn't a rich country by any means. They are trying to get shit, into their country, trying to get money, goods into their country pretty much by any means necessary. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, they're hurting. Sanctions are real, man. They fuck with people, big time.
Oh, they fuck with them hard. So that's kind of where I am with that. Is that they were just kind of holding on to that shit until like the next terrorist organization came up and gave them the highest bid for that shit.
Yeah,
and to add a little bit of credibility to your speculation, Zeke, to make it maybe not so out of the realm of possibility, excuse me, is, all it would take, when we say they, and we're talking about like, who it is that might be doing this thing that Zeke is kind of alluding to, it could be a port commissioner. It could be a manager of warehouses at the port. It could get down to a single person who is not really that well tracked.
Yeah.
Who's just kind of in the government, and he might have some connections, and he might have a way to make some money. And so he does that on the sly for a mysterious shipment of ammonium nitrate that showed up that nobody knew what to do with. And it's been sitting here for a while. I'm going to set up my own little side gig.
Well, and it's worth mentioning that over the last that's what we're still working off the number 6 years, right? Let's go with 6 years that it's been in the port, right? Over the last 6 years, you saw first, the increase of the Obama drone strike campaign, right, against all these different terrorist organizations, ISIS especially, right? And now, since Donald Trump has been in office, a larger increase on the ground in particular to try and handle ISIS, terrorist organizations. So, in terms of terrorist organizations, it's not been the easiest of time over the last 6 years, you know? So, it's not an unreasonable thing to think that if they have that much ammonium nitrate, the Lebanese government probably doesn't want to deal with it or deal it out in part. You know, they probably want to sell all of it at one time. Like, I don't want part of this here. I want to get rid of all of it. And if you don't have someone who has
I'm pushing weight
enough
over
liquidity,
here.
Right, a terrorist organization with enough liquidity to spend on that much chemical at one time.
So basically,
you know
all the terrorist cells are too broke because Hellfire missiles been raining down for a while. You know, everybody's broke.
Potential.
Sanctions have been heavily laid out there so that, like, their funding mechanisms might be hurt.
Well, and so much of the funding, because so much of the fighting especially has been happening in, like, Yemen, you know, and a lot of that is being funded partially through the United States and partially through Russia. You know?
And China.
So it's not coming from, you know what I'm saying, from other different Middle Eastern countries other than maybe Saudi Arabia, you know? So that's not an unreasonable maybe
speculation.
Not assumption to make, right, but certainly idea to have, you know, lens to look at this situation through, you know.
It could be a logical speculation.
Right.
You know. That's the fun thing about this speculation stuff is we can come up with these crazy theories, but you know, a vein of them might be true.
Well, and I don't want to
and at this point, there's nothing to say that it's not.
Yeah.
There's really nothing and we may never get to a point where we know what truly happened.
Right.
We probably won't. I mean, fuck, it's gone now. It's a giant fucking hole in the ground.
Right.
Period.
And I don't want to toot my own horn, but I've got a pretty good track record as far as the Middle East goes.
Yeah. So, I hate to say it, man. Because your outlooks aren't always that, you know, inspirational. They can be somewhat bleak and morose at times, but they tend to come true.
So needless to say, this is something that we'll be tracking here at Salt of the Streets. There are a lot of international ties that interest us personally and professionally that we'll be tapped into this for a while.
And it's kind of nice that COVID has put a kibosh on a lot of real political issues. It's been a lot of like high school drama.
Right.
And so we've been able to focus more on the geopolitics of things.
Do you guys
which
have
is
any,
very interesting.
You guys have any closing thoughts on this particular subject?
Other than the fact that if any kind of narrative comes out pertaining to know what's going on over there, I would say double, triple check what they're thinking, because this is going to take a long time to actually get to the truth of it if we ever actually do.
Yeah.
Just logically speaking. The Lebanese government doesn't keep great records, I would assure, of, you know, all their goings on that's tied to the port. So, honestly, there's probably no way we'll ever truly know what happened.
Yeah.
And so we may get relatively close to you know, some kind of explosives investigation or something, but...
Till we torture them, right? That's always worked in the past.
It's always worked in the past. They'll tell you, you getting tortured, you're going to tell them whatever they want to hear.
It's a joke. That's a joke for everyone watching and listening. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
That's why it's funny.
So, speaking of geopolitics, I had a great segue to talk about China here for a second.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No. This is just a really, really great episode. I have a lot of fun every episode, so, you know, if you're one of our guests that's listening, but whatever, this has just been it's been extra special fun today. We're going to talk about China.
Yes.
I want to talk to you about a small conversation, a sliver of a conversation that I had with Carolina the other night.
Okay. Carolina, what did you say? I'm just kidding.
The problem was...
I'm sure it was a good conversation.
She told me I was right. Now, how that was
what a beautiful
pertaining.
time.
What a time to be alive.
Yeah, right? I have been on the China train for a couple of years.
Did you soak it in?
Right? I did.
And you're like, oh.
I was like, But then it made me question some things.
Okay.
Oh, fuck. Never mind. I just remembered a point I was going to make for the Beirut thing, but
too late.
It's gone.
We've moved on.
Anyway,
Walked away
China,
too much already.
The Belt and Road Initiative has been something that I have talked about for a very fucking long time. And then China's evil plot to essentially take over the entire world, essentially. We've been talking about that for a long time.
I'd be interested to know when the first episode was that you mentioned the Belt and Road Initiative, because I think you mentioned it to me before, like when we worked together. I think you've been talking about it for that long.
Okay. Probably. She's going like, yeah, you haven't been able to shut up about that for a long time.
I wouldn't be surprised if, like, in one of the early episodes you brought that up.
So all I'm saying is,
yes,
what we're dealing with right now.
Oh man,
and like how I told everybody that some fucking shit like this was going to come.
Everybody,
2 fucking years ago.
Yeah, at least.
She was like, if you're right about that,
yeah.
What other crazy shit that you say all the time is actually right?
Yeah.
That sounds like,
sometimes
shit.
It sucks to be right. Like, it's times like that where you're like, I don't want to be right about that. Like, I know.
I was wrong about that, to be honest.
Exactly. Yeah.
I was like, I really wanted to be wrong about all this, but now it's looking like I'm not.
It's
China's
unfortunate.
Fucking on everybody right now.
We're really smart. It sucks.
Humble brag.
Yep. I'll just own it for a minute, you know.
Knowledge.
So I mean, we've definitely been talking about Saudi Arabia, Russia, and China consistently since the conception of this show.
I'm pretty sure we war gamed out World War III well in advance.
I remember specifically. Do you want to know something fucked up? I wrote these lists down earlier this week because I've heard we said at least a year ago, it looks like sides are getting drawn up. You know, like when you said, we were talking about World War III. At least a year ago, we said it looks like sides are being drawn up, right? And I've heard more than one mainstream podcast mention like different treaties and stuff that certain groups of countries are signing. So the United States, India, Japan, and Australia, and then China, Iran, and Russia. Mm-hmm. Like they're consistently talking about these 2 groups of nations together. These 2 groups that we've been like, oh, how fucking weird that all these people are connected through fucking dark ass money and nasty shit. So weird. Yep. So that's just one more thing, you know? Yeah. And I remember and again, specifically, like the weapons contracts with Saudi Arabia, when that first was announced, when Trump first got into office, like, this is some dumb shit. Like, this is not a thing we should be doing. A year later, like, oh, all these missiles that we're selling to Saudi Arabia, they're fucking launching them at the Yemeni people, and all these citizens are dying, and we don't know what to do about it. What? Like, oh, that's so fucking weird. That's so crazy that's what's happening, because I thought that I had said that, but yeah, we're just going to keep doing us. Keep getting shadow banned. We talked about that along the pre-show today, Zeke. So more evidence all the time, shadow banned. Sorry, go ahead.
So go ahead. Let's go ahead and you talking about weapons deals with Saudi Arabia. Let's talk about a weapons sale with Taiwan, or the weapons sales with Taiwan. Have you seen any of these recently? I just stumbled across them late last night.
From United States to Taiwan?
Oh, fucking word.
So add Taiwan to the list over here, huh?
So, because Taiwan is a U.S. ally. But according to China, or the communist, the Chinese Communist Party, Taiwan is actually a part of China. They are China.
Also, according to the World Health Organization. You know what I'm saying? We talked about all the precincts of China. Have you seen that video, Zeke?
About?
Where the worker for the World Health Organization wouldn't acknowledge Taiwan as an independent nation.
Oh, yeah. That shit was crazy. He was like, I don't see what you're seeing.
Yeah.
Weird.
Fucking nuts.
Right?
Weird.
So, recently, I think it was, so this article came out August 6th. It's from NPR. The Pentagon Chief Esper talks with Chinese counterpart as tensions soar. So, we just had the civilian head, essentially, of the Department of Defense, right? Our military minister, essentially. I think that's the Chinese equivalent. They had a 90-minute conversation the other day about the current kind of geopolitical grievances that we all have against each other. And one of the main points they brought up was a $2 billion sale of weapons to Taiwan, which I was
not necessarily knew existed up until I read
to
that.
Taiwan, huh?
And then, okay, so everybody at home, if you are listening to this, pull up your fucking smartphone, and I didn't save it because I'm an idiot, but we're going to type in Taiwan military deals. Taiwan military deals. We can spell deals. There we go. And it brings you right to the list on Wikipedia of all the dates and all the different deals that we've done under what presidents with Taiwan.
Yeah.
And let's just say $2 billion doesn't necessarily scratch the surface of what we've done over the last few decades, but they're one of our great weapons traders. And
really?
Yes. And we've been selling them airplanes and fucking missiles and fucking torpedoes.
Good.
For the South Sea of China.
Good.
The South China Sea. And so they're upset about that. They're upset about
strap up Taiwan.
Right? And they're upset about some high-level meetings of the Trump administration meeting with the administration of Taiwan. And then China goes ahead and announces to the world that they're going to have 2 weeks of live fire drills.
Right.
In the ocean there in the
South China Sea.
In the South China Sea.
Yeah.
As all this stuff's popping. So militarily, this first avenue of China. Militarily, things are heating up.
National security.
To the point that it's making Daddy a little nervous. We'll just say that. Where are you at, Zeke, with, the military tensions that have been building with China lately? And with our allies, not to mention India, for God's sakes.
Where am I at? With,
right? Chinese military aggression.
Fuck, man. This is going to be a lot to digest. All right, so with Taiwan, right? First off, it's probably, it's definitely a good thing that we're giving them all that shit. I don't know if you knew about the chase that we had with the Chinese ship that was getting in their waters. But we've had a history of running out Chinese ships that have been kind of tiptoeing around Taiwan for some time.
Right.
And it's been kind of getting more and more aggressive lately, and especially with COVID happening, they're thinking, I think it was the Roosevelt that had the port in Guam, wasn't it?
I believe so. I think they were out of Guam.
I think that was the same ship that was that was trailing one of these Chinese ships, and they're thinking, okay, these guys are backing off because COVID. These guys are backing off, so we need to get our shit ready and get ready to take this fucking island back.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's like that's when we were talking about COVID. That fucking aircraft carrier captain that made that big denouncement, like, we have a ship out of service because we're in COVID.
Right.
And there was that valid point about that whole situation where, like, we can't, regardless of how true it is, you can't go fucking announcing that shit to the world because guess who's listening? China. Yeah. And they're right there. So one of our strategic assets is out of service now because of COVID. It's pulled in the port. China, you can go fuck around.
Well, and another thing that Zeke and I have talked about as far as naval military in China is there has been 2 occasions now of Japanese ships being attacked, and then I think in one case, if not both, sunk by fishing vessels, quote unquote, in the China Sea. And Chinese have, we talked about this for a long time, Zeke and I. The Chinese have a very long history of using fishing boats in various fucked up ways, to block things off, and be like, oh, they're just fishing boats. We know, it's not military vessels. I don't have any idea. Like, that's so weird.
It's a communist tactic. It was the same problem we had fighting the Viet Cong in Vietnam.
Yeah. And what was it that you were saying about that? There's a certain interpretation that certain parties are taking to those ships being sunk, Zeke. What was that you were saying?
Oh, fuck. Man, it's been a minute since we talked about the ships sinking in China, but basically, so in the military sense, like the sinking of Japanese vessels, right? an act of war. You know what I'm saying? If you are sinking an enemy's or an ally's, or let's just say if you're attacking an ally's military, that is an act of war. That is how the military classifies it.
Through partnerships we have and through, NATO allyships, right? That's, so, and we're tight with Japan since World War II, essentially.
Since we took them over?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So,
I wonder why they're so tight with us.
Yeah.
We almost sank their entire economy in the 70s.
And the only point that I had to counter that to Zeke was, I remember seeing probably 3 or 4 years ago articles and videos about Japan proliferating its military. And there's a lot of question about that because of the treaties they signed after World War II. They were only supposed to expand for like self-defense and stuff like that. And so
you
they're
have the Japanese self-defense force.
Right, exactly. But they're making, they've made a lot of new battleships and stuff like that in the last few years. And which at this point, I don't really think
it's like, guys,
matters, but
they're a democracy now.
Yeah, but the only reason I mention that is because I know that at least one portion of America will make that argument. Because they're not even supposed to have those fucking ships anyway.
Legally, it's true,
right?
But it's not the same Japanese empire that used to be,
right?
Which that old treaties,
old ass treaty,
right? Old treaties that are still legally enforceable today. How many of those do we got?
It's over 70 years old, that treaty.
How many of those do we got? Because we might need to readdress some of that shit. It seems weird at this point. China's, Japan's they're not going to be an evil empire again. Just let them do what they want.
That might be coming. This is like, we're not going to talk about this, but like with Oklahoma, like the whole eastern half of Oklahoma or whatever they're saying is now a reservation. So that shit might be coming up, and it's not like we have like a super liberal Supreme Court right now. There are, 5-4 conservative. So
quote unquote.
They've turned out to be much less conservative than we thought, but but it still seems like they're pretty.
Which goes to show we shouldn't be putting this fucking conservative or liberal label on these fucking judges. They're just people. They're judges. They're going to rule accordingly.
Yeah.
That's a totally different topic.
Okay, so we've also seen.
I could go on about that.
that's for Zeke's next appearance.
There you go.
So we've also seen an increase in hacking on the side of China, right? A lot of stuff. And so one of the things I have here is a few weeks ago we saw Twitter being hacked. Right, and there's a lot of speculation about who did this hacking in Twitter. We saw prominent people's Twitter accounts, Joe Biden, Barack Obama, I think, like a bunch of people like that.
Well, let's pause this for a second, because I think this is what we talked about in the pre-show, so we should kind of semi-bring it into that situation. But there was a lot of people that speculated on it not being essentially just a random hacker or whatever for a Bitcoin scandal, right?
Yes.
But there has been realistically zero coverage on any of this. It popped up in a blink of an eye and then was gone. And so there was really no real coverage on it, except if you're like you or I and listen to people like Tim Pool and stuff that are actually plugged into this stuff. The mainstream media didn't touch that at all. They called it a Bitcoin scandal.
Right.
Odds of it being a fucking actual Bitcoin scandal are about 1 in a million. It doesn't make logical sense, for God's sakes.
Yeah, and this is an article from the 31st that says that they charged a teenager, a recent high school graduate, in connection to it. But I know.
Interesting.
I don't know, man.
Well, that was a whole. I don't know if we really dove into it, but they essentially somebody had gotten to one of the Twitter administrators, which gave them access to all these accounts, and whoever that entity was, we don't know. But the employee at Twitter, the poor guy that got hacked, that got fucking honeypotted or whatever the hell happened to him. We know who that is.
Yeah.
We don't know who the real entity what their intentions were. We don't know any of it.
Even past that, one more on the ground military issue with China that I just thought of. They've had recent border conflicts with India.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
There was 11 Indian soldiers that were killed. And we don't know how many Chinese soldiers were killed because they won't say. But
we have military deaths
at that time
across national lines.
At that time, they didn't even have guns, so they were beaten to death with like clubs wrapped with fucking barbed wire and shit. And and I remember hearing that the Chinese soldiers that were there at that time were like new rotations. they had not been in that area for very long, you know? And so there's obviously the same thing, a lot of speculation that those soldiers were sent there. You know, soldiers, military agents, whatever you want to speculate and call them, were sent there for that purpose. Yeah. Since then, we've seen more soldiers be sent there from both sides, on the Indian side and on the Chinese side. These, I don't remember what the mountains are called, but they're in the mountains that split these two countries.
So that's up kind of by like where the non-nation of Kashmir and stuff is, right?
Yeah. And so there's...
And Pakistan's fucking around up there, too.
Huge tensions growing on that border. And that's part of how, you know, these teams I was kind of talking about earlier, that's part of how India got wrapped up in this team of the United States, because we're against Japan, the anti-Miami. I mean, not that we're against India or anything, but so...
in the hypothetical World War II scenario that there would be.
So there are real world active concerns, you know, as far as physical military engagements China is involving in. And then there's also the technological ones we're talking about. First of all, just with the stealing of technology, right? Consistent stealing of intellectual property.
So there was one point before we fully got off of national security that I wanted to hit, was that at this point in time, given the last time we were this close to an all-out global conflict was the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Yeah.
Like, we were literally a push of a button away from nuclear winter at that point, right? Whether or not nuclear missiles and stuff would be involved in this potential conflict to come up, but we're this fucking close to a massive World War III level global conflict if things happen in a certain way going on out.
Zeke, do you have any more points as far as shady shit that China is doing in regards to the military?
I mean, I think we covered. The main stuff with Taiwan, the border dispute with India. I would say take note with who they're allying with and why they would be doing these things. Like, obviously, China is doing this on Pakistan's behalf because they want Pakistan to have the fresh water that's coming from these mountains. You know, they want it to go to Pakistan instead of India, and that's why they're, you know, creating such a great stink about it. Also, take note of Russia-China relations. They have been working on a super sub. Probably, if I'm not mistaken, it's going to be, if not the biggest and quietest sub in the sea when it's finished, and that's going to cause a lot more issues than one might think. But I'll leave it at that for right now.
Do you know when that's supposed to be finished?
So the speculation, they're like at the latest 2030 is when it would be done and operational at the latest.
And that's not that long. 10 years sounds like a long time, but
it's really not.
It's really not that long.
Yeah. That's one president away.
Right. Realistically, yeah.
And I think Commentary Magazine, they had mentioned something about a manufacturer of a part to that submarine, or the supposed submarine, or, you know, suspected design of a submarine might have been caught up in some of the more recent sanctions that have been coming through here. I'll have to go back and look into that. But, I mean, it's Red October. The movie Red October, except it's not necessarily Russia. It's just a adversarial force building something like that.
So is it safe to say that China is on a higher level of concern as far as the military goes?
They are definitely they are the people that we are worried about at the moment.
Makes sense.
But it's like it's really weird, because what people are fearing is that if we go out and fight, is that Russia would be doing a lot of the heavy lifting, and China would be doing a lot of the
financing,
the finance, the hacking, that kind of shit. They that's what they specialize in. Like if you get a bully and going against a nerd, the nerd isn't going to fight fair.
Yeah.
And like I was saying,
you know what I'm saying? They're going to do whatever means necessary to win that fight.
What are you trying to say, Zeke? The Chinese people are nerds in this situation? That's fucked up. No, man, that's real though. I mean, historically, that's kind of been the way. China does not. I'm sorry, Russia does not have the technological advantage. They never have ever, almost seemingly in the modern history of the Russian Federation, the USSR, all this stuff. They've always had like the brute force, the manpower, but they've never had the technology. And so now they have an ally that has the technology.
China's definitely proliferating their hacking abilities.
The Reddit hack just popped off the other day.
Mm-hmm.
A bunch of weird ass messages from obviously people that do not speak English, coming out of massive pro-Trump messages on Reddit, which I'm taking at the word of some sources that we're getting, but I don't fuck around on the Reddit that much.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Zeke, do you ever fuck around on Reddit?
I used to, but since we actually had someone put out a lot of PPE on Reddit, and so it's not PPE, PII. There we go, PII. That's
PII.
You know what PII is?
No, go ahead.
PII.
What's PII?
Gosh, I have to Google what the.
Oh, I can Google it.
It's just like personal information.
Okay.
And so someone was posting personal information on Reddit.
Personally identifying information. There you go.
There you go.
So yeah, like it's like the old school social media, or just we didn't even have social media back then. The old school internet rules that we grew up with. Don't give away your private personal information.
Right.
It doesn't matter what fucking app is asking for it. Don't give away your phone number. Don't give away your fucking name and your address and all that good stuff. Don't do that. This is what led us to the fucking TikTok situation.
This motherfuckers with TikTok.
Mm-hmm. I can't wait to talk about TikTok. TikTok.
I've been saying that shit for fucking ever. Oh my god.
Zeke, tell me about your thoughts on TikTok.
Yeah, that shit should be fucking banned. I think Trump is doing the right thing on that shit.
Now, why?
They've been like since that app has come out, I'm like there have been like red flags about them collecting data from you, and not just from like it's like based off what you're typing, your search history. Like even if that app is closed, they are still collecting information on whatever the fuck you do. They listen to your conversations. It is absolutely insane, like what these people can do, and that the TikTok people are I don't know what the name of the company is that runs it, but
the parent company of TikTok is ByteDance. Yeah. So
ByteDance, these guys are like they work hand in hand with the CCP. Like that's abundantly clear, and that should be a red flag for everyone and their fucking mother, especially if they're using TikTok or WeChat or Weibo or like any of these platforms that are based in China, because
it goes so deep.
Right. I was just seeing that thing just on like Timcast. They were talking about all the different companies that WeChat either owns or owns part of. I mean, it's all these different technology companies and gaming companies and stuff like that. And there's 2 different executive orders that have come down over the last couple weeks. One that's in regards to like Hong Kong and I think like slave labor and shit, like atrocities happening in China, and like you're going to get in a lot of trouble if you're dealing with anybody who's doing bad shit in China. Mm-hmm. And then in general, that's a very non-specific, like, summary of what the first executive order was, but the second one was more specific in regards to WeChat and ByteDance. That's like you cannot do business with these companies anymore.
ByteDance is the parent company to TikTok, but the parent company to the rest of these is called Tencent.
Tencent, that's what it is. Tencent.
And that's the one that has
WeChat, right?
And really, what we're talking about here,
Tencent.
is like a decent amount of stock shares owned
Right.
by specific companies that have direct ties to the Communist Party, right? Enough of a percentage in the stock so that they can possibly sway the outcome of decisions made in the company.
Right.
And this goes all the way through Snap, Blizzard, you know, StarCraft, Diablo, fucking Dota,
Well,
like all these
and
League of
we've-
Legends type games.
We've seen it even down to fucking pork companies. When all of these shutdowns were happening, everyone's like, oh, also all these companies are owned by Chinese people. Like,
How about
all
this?
Smithfield is like majority owned
Mhm.
by Chinese companies. Like, what the fuck?
But how about this one, right? Spotify. Who did Spotify
No!
Who did Spotify just sign a massive fucking deal with? On a guy who is not afraid to get on the internet for anybody to hear on Spotify and say, fuck the CCP, fuck China.
And who did they just sign with?
And who do they just give $100 million to?
Yeah.
Fucking Joe Rogan.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Jesus.
That's going to be a thing.
And who owns part of Spotify?
That would be the Tencent.
Tencent owns
Tencent.
how much of Spotify? Do you know?
Who knows?
Just
I don't know
part
at
of
this
it?
point. But they're involved.
Fuck.
They do have
The
But see, that's the
NBA,
thing.
right? The NBA. We talked about the NBA at least a year
Yeah.
ago when all that shit first
Okay.
started to happen. Yeah.
But the problem here is under the language of the actual executive order is it's very broad. It's anybody who does business with these companies.
right.
So it's not a matter of how much of the business they have a stock in. It's just the fact they do business with them at all.
And because it was so broad, no one knows. You know?
Exactly. And that is part of the Belt and Way Initiative. That is the Belt and Road Initiative is to
Yeah.
go through and you buy, private companies in China they buy into stock, they buy real estate, they do all this stuff all throughout.
Invest in infrastructure.
Yes. In all throughout the United States, they buy into companies, they do all this stuff because now they have a financial interest in that.
Right. And in other countries, we've seen, because the Belt and Road Initiative, like you said, is something we've talked about for a long time, but it's called that partially because it's meant to connect the entire world, right?
You're rebuilding the
Silk Road at one point connected with like 90% of the world or some shit. That's a totally random number I just picked, but a huge portion of the world was all connected to the Silk Road, right?
All commercial roads lead to China.
And so
That's how that works.
China has, for the last decade probably, been investing all over the world, and in Africa specifically, in like highways and ports and shit like that. They're building all this infrastructure, providing all this capital and all these jobs to. Can I give this to you, please? To people who have they don't really have any other option, And it's not that they're like, they're not paying them as good as they're paying them here, but they're still getting paid way more money than they would to do anything else,
Well, check
to build
this out.
roads and shit. So it's
a small family with very little money saves up enough money to buy a truck. And they start a trucking company. But they don't have a goddamn way to deliver the goods because the roads are through the desert or through whatever the fuck. So China comes in, they build you a road. Now all of a sudden, hey, there's a free road that way to have commerce that way right across the border in China.
right.
Now who gets to cash in on that transaction? That's what the Belt and Road Initiative is all about.
Yeah.
All commercial roads feed back to Beijing. And that's what I've been so upset about over the last few years, because once you do that, you have economic control over the entire world. You can push and pull all these levers as much as you want. People got to dance. Otherwise, no money, there's no life. Done.
Well, and even outside of that, we've seen them dominate through the field of production, right? Everything is made in China, right?
We're not afraid of slave labor.
And now we've seen, part of these executive orders are dealing with slave labor. When the heads of Google, Apple, Facebook, and Amazon all testified last week, right? Yep. They testified in front of Congress that they were not knowingly taking part in using slave labor. I'm sorry, haven't we known?
Gave a little bit.
Like, haven't we known for years that iPhones are made by little fucking Chinese kids and African kids that are digging dangerous metals out of the fucking earth and dying, and like all the, like Don't we know that already?
We knew that.
How does what's his name? Tim Cook? How does Tim Cook not know that? That's his name, right? Apple guy?
Tim Cook.
Yeah.
He definitely knows that.
Right. He's like, oh no, and if we knew, that we were affiliated with anybody who's using slave labor, we would definitely separate ourselves.
Of course.
And I'm like, I don't understand let me get your take on this, right? Because Zeke, because part of one of the things that frustrates me about people's outlook on China, is it took TikTok being banned and actual drone videos of Uyghur Muslims with shaved heads being piled onto trains for anybody to even begin to give a shit. And you've known about this, most of this China stuff for a long time, and I would assume the Uyghur Muslim thing for a while, right?
A considerable amount of fucking time.
Yeah. And now, we're seeing allegations, proof of, their hair is being sold, their organs are being stolen. And it's shocking to me that it's taken this much for any type of mainstream media to take notice to that,
Mm-hmm.
What would you attribute that to? If anything, do you have any thoughts on that?
Okay, so with the, I'll give you a little story. Even with that drone footage of the Uyghur Muslims, like I shared that with some people that are like very far left leaning, and I'm trying to like get them to think level headedly and kind of be, just think more calmly about this shit.
Yeah.
I shit you not. All right. So the first thing that they told me was like, well, it's better than what they're still being treated better than how they're treating our immigrants here. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about?
They're literally
they're like bringing up ICE and shit. They're bringing up like the protests. I'm like,
straw man much?
Yeah. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
What? Like,
different conversation.
People lining up and going into the trains. Like, I don't have footage of them being of their organs being taken out and shit. But we do know that the hair was sent from China to America. Like, that's a fact. And I'm assuming that those organs were in the black market.
Right.
Yeah.
We talked about the hair the last time we were here with Brandon, that there was shipments of gun parts and fucking like tons of hair that were sent here from China that you can only assume, was shaved off of the heads of these Muslims that are being forced onto trains and shipped to random work camps, re-education camps, quote unquote, around China.
Yeah, I don't know how well the wig hair market is popping in America.
Man.
I don't know where that comes from. I know a lot of the wig hair is synthetic, but if it has real hair, it came from someone.
Yeah. So another thing.
Hello.
Yeah.
I've paid hundreds of dollars for real hair extensions. Hundreds.
People do that.
Dollars for like real human hair extensions.
So let me.
I got to start a new company.
Let me talk to you about
legit.
something that I just read about in this week's edition of the Epic Times, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, let me say this, and then we'll talk about this week's edition, because I have in front of me, Zeke, I get the newspaper from the Epic Times every week. I have in front of me 7 issues of the Epic Times, right?
Nice.
And
Epic Times.
it's
POCH.
It is worth mentioning they're obviously a China-focused newspaper, right?
100%.
But 6 of these 7 issues of the Epic Times has a Chinese-related headline on the front page of something fucking shady and terrible that they're doing that week. This is just in the last 7 weeks, these issues I have here.
Oh, my. Lay us out a few of these gems.
Okay, so I'll start at the back because this one that I read this week is the one I want to talk to you guys about. And so let's see.
7
here.
weeks. Definitely goes back way
This
farther
one has
than that.
2. Leaked document contradicts China's official narrative on Wuhan wet market. And then the next one after that is Watchdog Group calls on Trump Congress to impede China's, quote, organ genocide. So there's that one. That one is from June 4th. After that...
So, wait. Who was it that urged the Trump administration?
A watchdog group. A response
watchdog
to
group,
the
okay.
Organized Genocide Committee by the Chinese regime is one of the 12 recommendations to President Donald Trump and the 12th Congress by a watchdog group on May 7th.
Does it say the name of the group? I'd be curious.
I'm sure it does in this article, but no,
Okay.
you can
Don't worry about it.
Well, you can keep that one.
Yeah.
Let's
I love
see.
getting the hand-me-downs of the Epoch
The next one
Times.
after this, doctor concerned over human trial of vaccine developed with Chinese military. So that one is from June 11th. This next one, virus outbreak in China's capital forces top leaders to admit severity. That's from June 18th.
Damn.
See, this one's from July 8th. And new security law ushers in authoritarian era for Hong Kong.
That's when they finally did it.
Yep. Let's see. Accuracy of COVID data diluted by different ways states count deaths. So that's from America. This might be the one issue that I found that didn't have one on the front. Yeah, so that's the one that I found that didn't.
Out of 7 weeks, there was 1 week where China wasn't the number one headline.
Let's see. This next one is TikTok hires internet police to monitor American users. X-Censor says. That's from July 22nd. And then this is the one that I wanted to talk to you guys about. Chinese networks dominate chemical cash sectors of drug cartel business. Right? So... this article that I read...
Must be talking about fentanyl?
So that's only part of this.
Okay.
Right? That's the chemical portion of it that they control is they mass produce these chemicals, they mislabel them, and then ship them to companies in South America and Central America so that they can produce these drugs if they're not purchasing just straight drugs. Right? Okay. So another thing they talked about that I did not know. This is a full article. I'll leave this front portion with you if you want so you can read it. And it talks about how China and different companies within China are undercutting the already established money laundering business for drug cartels. So there's a DEA agent that they're interviewing in here that was saying that the usual rate for money launderers is like 8%. That's the commission they'll charge. So these Chinese companies are doing it for 1% or 0%. So they're just scooping up this entire market, right? So they're taking all this from here. Let me read this portion of it actually to you. It's just like 3 little paragraphs. So let's see here. A prominent case involved 3 Chinese nationals who were indicted in 2019 but remain at large. They coordinated the collection of cash from cartel drug sales around 300 pickup locations in the United States, according to the DOJ. They then allegedly acted as brokers to supply cash to wealthy U.S.-based Chinese who were restricted from transferring more than $50,000 per year from Chinese banks to overseas. The Chinese buyer would transfer money from his or her Chinese bank account to the broker's bank account in China. After the transfer, the U.S. cash from the drug sales would be directly released to the Chinese people in the United States. To complete the cycle, the brokers would export Chinese goods such as electronics and clothing to the cartel in Mexico, which would be sold for pesos. Other laundering channels identified by the DEA include trade-based money laundering, the over or underpricing of goods, falsified bills of lading and customized declarations, security transactions, so stocks, bonds, commodities, real estate transactions, casino-related transactions, and wire transfers via both formal and underground banking systems. So China is charging 0 or 1% to do these transactions for drug cartels, and they're doing it because even if they're not receiving money, they are receiving global influence through underground drug cartels. Mm-hmm. And so they're able to then establish networks for the organs that they're selling, the hair that they can't ship illegally anymore to United States ports. Mm-hmm. They're doing all of this stuff. This is all happening. And the shit that I'm sharing from this company is being blocked by social media as fake fucking news.
Hashtag fake news.
This is where we're living at. The drugs that are being sent here through South America that everyone's like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. You know, that shit's not really happening. Talked about over 100,000 tons of methamphetamines. 100,000 pounds of methamphetamines been brought through ports of entry this year.
100,000 pounds.
Yes, over 100,000.
Over 100,000 pounds. So, that being said,
this is the shit that's being blocked.
This is what happens, man. This is how this modern warfare is taking place. It's taking place purely on the economic front.
So check this. So just
it's not just the economic front, though.
Well,
Right,
that's the problem
right.
now, is it's starting to not be.
So far this fiscal year, with 3 months to go, Customs and Border Protection has seized almost 104,000 pounds of meth being trafficked through ports of entry. In comparison, 20,000 pounds were seized in fiscal year 2014.
Damn. Well, what's happened since 2014? Let's examine why that volume might have increased so much.
Yeah.
Because there's a continued legalization of other certain illicit chemicals
Well,
in
and
the United
that's
States, and a crackdown on things like
exactly.
heroin and
the
pills.
importation of the precursor chemicals coming into America. And that's why they're being mislabeled and sent to South America and Central America. And that talks about that in this article too, that in that time, it's so hard to get those chemicals into America anymore in mass quantities that you can barely even create it, especially, and I'm not attributing it to this show, but like around the time that Breaking Bad was like really crazy big was also when there was a fuckload of small meth labs all over the country,
That was the same time frame where we had meth labs blowing up in our fucking neighborhoods.
Exactly. And so they closed, there was a huge crackdown on that shit in America, but you can only do so much about it in South America, in Central America, and there's enormous fucking super labs there, There's another, I just put this away, but there's another statistic in here that's like 7 tons. They can make 7 tons in 3 days as the amount of meth a Mexican super lab can produce.
Damn. By the way, this is like a weird little aside, but like the sound of opening the paper on the microphone sounds so fucking good.
Fucking news, dog. And that's like this. That's why I'm so frustrated. Like I said, this is the shit that is being blocked from social media. The actual information that's being verified from DEA agents, people who worked there, who saw it, who did it, is being blocked because it's from the Epic Times and not from the New York Times. And that's fucking crazy to me.
It is.
It's absurd.
Once we have these social media companies deciding who and who is not a quote-unquote legitimate source, that is them controlling the feed of information, which at that point it is not... It's not free-flowing.
Well, and we're seeing more, why that concerns me, and I'd be interested to hear what you guys think. We'll ask Zeke first, and then we'll ask you. Mm-hmm. We're seeing, like we talked about, Chinese influence growing in more and more and more American companies all the time.
Oh, yeah.
And they have all these shell corporations. That's how they're laundering all this money, Mm-hmm. And so who's
it's also how they're
say,
smuggling the technology in and out.
Right. So who's to say that they're not soon or already doing the same thing with the social media companies that we have? I mean, how long, until we have other countries dictating what we're allowed to say, let alone people who don't agree with our personal values.
Tim Cook and Jeff Bezos. There is no war in bossing, say.
What is your take on that, Zeke? Because you don't have that much social media. Like, you're relatively disconnected from the world social media wise. That's part of why you consume, I think, so many different media sources.
Smart man.
Yeah. So what's your take on that?
So in regards to like speech and what China is doing to to like own these people, so that's nice. I'm fairly certain China is already kind of silencing these people by just owning them and telling them just, shut the fuck up and just not to talk about this shit. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like you see it with, I would go as far as to say it's the news. Like they don't go that far into it.
You said the newts?
News.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yes.
Well, and we've seen... I sent you that video. I just watched again this morning from the Epic Times talking about all the different political groups in America that they have influence in, And I wrote the names
Black Lives Matter,
of, I have the names of the groups. I wrote them down. Just 1 second. The Freedom Road Socialist Organization and Liberation Road. Those are 2 enormous political groups that are China-based that are funding Black Lives Matter protests all over the country, along with, numerous other Marxist organizations, socialist organizations.
Very fucking alarming to people who are protesting. That is very alarming.
Right.
Because you guys have watched the video where they say that they're trained Marxist and all that shit.
Oh yeah.
It's happened over a long period of time since like socialism was being accepted in academia and colleges.
Accepted, embraced and pushed out on a production level.
Any opposing, conservative or even, moderate kind of thinking. Like you see it on college campuses all the time when, I think his name is Charlie Kirk or, Stephen Crowder or Ben Shapiro. Like, I got to give you guys credit because I never would have listened to Ben Shapiro at all until I listened to his lectures because I just thought he was just a racist bigot. But a lot of the shit that he says to me, I'm like, yeah, no, that makes sense. But
I'm really happy to hear that.
Yeah, like there's a lot of guys I would not have given a chance if not it wasn't for you guys to say, hey, give this guy a shot, and but
that's nice to hear, though.
Yeah, that's good.
That's good. You know, and I will say with this, it's very important to remember, and like I need to remind myself of this too, that when I listen to or I watch or I read certain people that I wholeheartedly disagree with, and I generally could not disagree with more. Insert like the Pod Save America guys. They have this new one that one of my employees had me start to listen to. So it's Pod Save America, it's Pod Save the World. Now there's Pod Save the People.
Oh,
listen to that one.
Okay.
But because it's important to understand where your ideological enemies, adversaries, I will say, where they sit,
right,
how they justify their ideas. Like it's, and this is again why free speech is so fucking important. You can't immediately say somebody that's out there like the leaders of BLM who have come out and said they are fully trained Marxist warriors or whatever, Marxist activists. And, you read the actual BLM, the trademark, the actual companies.
Right. And so just to clarify, right, we're talking about the group, not like, because we've talked before, like
the movement versus the organization.
Right. And we're talking about the actual structural organization of Black Lives Matter, right?
Which has very little influence in the actual demonstrations.
I think
these are being hijacked by people that identify with the organization.
I think everybody agrees that Black Lives Matter. I don't think that that's really a question, right? So, but
you gotta qualify
right.
it.
We're talking about the actual structural organization, Black Lives Matter.
Yes.
So I just wanted to make sure that there's so much confusion.
My cover your ass button has been checked. Thank you.
And intentional, conflation between the two. People are like, so you don't think Black Lives Matter then, Colin? Is that what you're saying?
A lot of people don't understand that there's two different things.
Right. And so
a lot of people don't understand that.
For anybody who's tuning in for the first time,
word.
You know what I'm saying?
Welcome to the party. We'll try not to crush your soul
if you've listened this far, I'm fucking proud if this was your first time around. But yeah. And we've seen, what the fuck was I going to say as far as China influence, drugs,
social media. It's been a lot. We kind of divulged there a lot.
Purchasing, news companies.
But the nice thing is, Zeke is such an OG to the show. He understands how it goes.
Yeah.
We start somewhere where we take a hard left somewhere.
Yeah. Oh! Students! Got it, right? We have seen, we were talking about Marxist ideology in the universities, right? And the way that this Black Lives Matter Marxist ideology relates back to China is we have seen at least 10 over the last few years Chinese agents posing as students to steal. We've seen them trying to take genetic material out of the country. We've seen professors here working as part of what called like the 1,000 Minds Initiative or the 1,000 Ideas Initiative, or something like that, coming out of China, working for China, not disclosing it, and also working for the United States government. Like we've seen that multiple times over the last few years. So there is no doubt that they have military agents, government agents here posing as students to implant ideologies and also export technology, export information, genetic materials, I mean, we've seen it. There's no doubt about that. This is all verified, 100%.
And make no mistake, there is a lot of them. They are all over our universities.
And now,
they are fucking everywhere. And go ahead.
No, so you finish your thought there.
Fucking lost it.
I think we basically got there before I fucked you up, man. So that being said, there are a lot. Now we do not know the percentage of those people that are unwitting participants, right? So again, especially when you think about the tactics of the communists over the years,
And
you think about the continued tax, their tactics. A lot of these people may be legitimate engineering students who want to come learn about engineering,
Right.
and then need to get hired
Co-opted
at a
afterwards.
job so they can turn their student videos into a working visa. They have gamed out the system thusly to target people
Right.
for espionage. These are most of these people, I believe, are probably unwilling participants that are getting caught up in this shit because this is the same thing the fucking Soviet Union used to do.
Right.
It's the same exact, the tactics used by the Marxist left have not changed
They still
since
haven't,
before World War II started.
Right.
It's the same shit. We just...
Little handbooks that you can read. There's literally handbooks you can read.
You can order them off of fucking Amazon,
Yeah.
by the way. It's the same ones. They've just become so gimmicky that nobody truly thinks they're real.
Right.
And so you can order it as like, it's that, and we don't believe in, cutting off free speech and all that. If you write a book, somebody can fucking read it. I don't care if it's Mein Kampf or not.
Right.
But it is 100% happening, but I just want to make sure we don't cross that threshold into essentially creating this hatred of Chinese
No,
people.
certainly.
Absolutely.
Right.
Because that is the hard part.
People,
That is the very hard part about all of this.
Right.
We saw it happen, thank God, on a very, very small scale when like the pro-Hong Kong movement was still popping, really before COVID took hold. A lot of, there was a couple cases here or there of like people literally getting hate
shit
crimes
beat out of them, yeah.
because they were fucking Chinese.
Well, and it's the same thing. I mean,
And that just comes down to ignorance.
Right. I appreciate that you said that. And I was thinking the same thing. So that we are certainly not trying to proliferate any type of prejudice or bigotry towards Chinese people.
100%.
Because this has nothing to do, and you've said this many times in the past, this has nothing to do with the people of China.
Yeah.
This has to do with the Chinese Communist Party, right?
Yep.
The same thing as we've seen in North Korea, Venezuela, any other ridiculous communist country that has control over everyone, authoritarian country, Russia, there are people who don't agree with what's happening, right? Yeah. So it's not like the entirety of China is bought in. Like I said, we've seen it in Hong Kong. There are thousands of people showing up in the streets, waving arrows,
American flags, for God's sake,
because they believe in freedom. So this has nothing to do with the people of China. This 100%. Has to do with the Chinese Communist Party. They're the ones that are doing these things. And so I'm definitely not telling you, if you see a Chinese immigrant in your school, be sus of them because they're, are likely stealing secrets. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that it's a reality that we need to be aware of, right? Not that you need to be constantly suspicious or skeptical of every Chinese student that you see. That's racist as fuck. But
if you are a small company that is looking to hire, say, an engineering student fresh out of college, I know from experience.
A lot of research companies do that type of shit.
You can get a lot of, people that are on student visas or work visas at that point from another country because they just finished up college on a student visa.
Right.
What is a small business owner who doesn't give two shits about this stuff? What are they to do when somebody comes from them saying, hey, I would love to work for you. I'm an engineer. I just graduated. All this good stuff. I'm a tech guy. Whatever it is that you're hiring.
Top of my class because I'm Asian.
What if they're
that might be racist too, but likely
that's
statistically speaking.
Yeah, but that's a whole nother conversation.
That was racist. There's no getting around it.
It's not. God damn it! It's not actually racist. It's just the fundamental family values and the core values of people in that culture lead to a much stricter lifestyle. Being a young adult,
it was racially charged.
Yes, but due to the way that we perceive everybody by the color of their fucking skin and the nation they come from, now that's deemed racist to say that.
Yeah,
which is disgusting. Anyways, you get these students. You might be people in our community will be forced to grapple with that. Do I hire this student who seems to just want to work? And odds are they just want to work. Maybe the CCP might tap them for some kind of information. Who knows? Yeah,
it's a real life thing that you have to balance with real world consequences. You
Right.
cannot discriminate against somebody like that. You're not going to. That's fucked up.
Right.
Nobody's going to do that. I'm not going to not hire a Chinese student of engineering who just graduated.
If you're
who
a
I want
Chinese
to groom.
student, come work for us. Come intern for us. We'll let you intern for us.
Word. But some things are kind of torn. Are they not?
Don't get butthurt. We're not gonna, not gonna censor ourselves around you.
No.
Don't steal any of our shit.
But what happens if you hire that person and they're getting emails on the sly from, 4 or 5 shell companies out from the CCP who's digging at somebody because they have been identified as a counterinsurgent target that they can gather information from.
Okay, so maybe we can't. Do you want to know something funny? Because, maybe just last week, I was talking to Jordan about, our future and, owning shit and, owning a company and, we're going to say a lot of shit. And I was like, are you prepared to, be a target from the government because of the things that Colin and I say?
I can't wait to meet all the women that you have had extramarital relationships in 40 years.
And so she says to me, she says, do you really think that you're not already on some type of list? And I was like, well, I mean, yeah, no, I'm sure that we're all being watched. And she said, no. She said, I mean, with the things that you're saying, she's like, you guys are already shadow banned. So the stuff that you've been looking up and buying on the internet, she said, do you honestly think that's somebody isn't actually watching you, at least slightly more than the average person?
You got snap.
I was like, yeah, I mean, I guess. I didn't really think about it like that, but I guess.
He said, no, DuckDuckGo. And I laughed at him.
No, DuckDuckGo that shit.
Yeah, all of my fucking end of the world radio. This is my book radio, by the way. There's my book radio.
It's nice.
I still have no idea how it really works.
So we'll figure it out.
But
need some helmets.
I mean, all of those type of things, I do legitimately search on DuckDuckGo. Yeah. I will think about it and go, I don't think I want to Google this.
Some stuff I tore, bro. I'm like, I'm going to Tor this one.
Tor.
You can download a Tor app on your phone. Do you ever use Tor, Zeke? It's okay if you don't want to answer that question. Do you know what Tor is?
No.
Tor is the Onion router. And so it is
Onion router.
It's a free internet service that you can download. And
here we go. I'm going to Google Tor.
You can also get an app for it, right? Everybody watching should intake this information.
Do you have Tor Project?
I have it.
I'm going to say, because if Tor Project is what you have and it's the number one thing that comes up on Google, you probably shouldn't have it. Just saying.
I have Tor on my phone, right?
Okay.
So, and I've used it on the computer, and so the Onion router is a VPN. It's a free VPN, and so
nice.
Every time you go to a new page, Jacob is calling. Every time you go to a new page,
I'd pick up, but I don't want to put it.
And
on
I don't know that it can go between between apps. So every time you go to a new page, it gives you a new IP address.
Word.
And so there's a lot of stuff that I'm just going to use Tor for this one. I'm gonna look this particular item up on Tor.
That's funny as shit.
I've done that before.
That's great.
That's why I have it on my phone. It's definitely worth it. It's a little bit slower because it's routing you, around the globe. But
you don't fuck with a ExpressVPN or NordVPN.
Not if I have to pay for it. This one's free.
That's true.
This one's free, and there's no
Express. I think
there's no
that costs money,
pop-up ads or anything. I think that a person made it, and they're like, everyone should be able to access the dark web, and they just made it. So
it totally makes sense.
There's a lot of people that feel that way. So
because at that point, Express is just other VPN companies have decided they figured out something anybody can use, but they're going to become a gatekeeper and charge you a fee for going through their gate.
Yeah. Yeah, Tor has they have a premium version where you can choose your stuff, but I don't care. I'm not doing anything sketchy enough that I need to select where my IP address is coming from. I don't care.
Well, for streaming, I don't know if we've talked about that before, but through certain VPNs, I know Express, you can choose which country of origin you want your IP address to come from.
Yeah,
so that you can go on to things like Netflix and get different shows and shit like that are only shown in the UK or Japan or something like that.
And I imagine you might be able to do that on Tor. I have not. I don't care enough to I just use it to look up shit that I'm like, I don't know that I want anybody to know that I want to know about this. So
that's a good point. I'm like questioning a lot of
the only time that I use it. Yeah. So
the convenience factor. I think that's got to be a real thing to look at, though. Is the reason Google has become Google, and the reason why we say Google it,
because it's right there.
It's because it's right there.
Yeah.
The ease of access is so simple. I mean, it is literally more difficult to type into my browser DuckDuckGo than it is to type in Google.
I have a DuckDuckGo app too.
That's legitimate. I want one.
It's free.
I'm going to get on my phone.
I have all in one folder. I have Safari, DuckDuckGo, and Tor. I have all my internet apps in one folder so that I can decide which way I should look up whatever I'm about to look up.
That's so funny.
Yeah. And so there's a lot of shit that I DuckDuckGo. Most things probably I DuckDuckGo. There's a lot of shit that I'll just Google because I don't give a fuck.
I need to make that shit my homepage. Just because it's so much easier. I don't have to type in DuckDuckGo.
Bought a lot of gun shit.
I got these giant ass fingers, bro. All right, it's hard to type sometimes.
DuckDuckGo app, it's totally worth it.
Shit.
Bought a lot of gun shit.
Zeke, let me ask you this question. Do you use any kind of other search engine, or like I know for certain things I use an application or a browser called Brave. To get past certain things. Do you use any kind of VPNs or ad blockers or anything like that generally? I'm pretty sure that's not illegal.
No. If I get anything, it'll be from my brothers or some other friends. Like where they get their info, I don't know. Like usually I Google a lot of shit, and that's probably why it's really hard to get a lot of half-decent information.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I will say the one problem I have is with Google is a lot of the top search results, they bring you to sites that require subscriptions. And even if they're ads,
mainstream
if it's a mainstream site like MSNBC or CNN or the Seattle Times or something like that, like I understand that they're paying Google money to get towards the top of the list, but that fact doesn't delegitimize them to me necessarily, because I know enough about the outlet themselves.
No, but
the fact that I have to click on them,
like specific local newspapers, I should be able to find it, but I can't find it sometimes.
Exactly. That's my problem with the Kitsap Sun, by the way. Is that is local news that you have to pay for, which again, thank God for Brave, because I can do unlimited. Yeah, I'm sure you could do it on Tor too. Yep. But yeah, like with the Brave browser, I can go to New York Times, Washington Post, Seattle Times, Kitsap Sun, all these different news sites that always require a subscription. I don't have to pay for that.
Yeah.
Sweet. Get past that shit, because it's always moving your fucking IP data around. Which again is nice about Brave, but Brave is also a continuing evolution. And so if you have things like bookmarked and like your cookies that are saved. So your cookies, for people that don't know, is the data that's kind of stored within your browser or your app or whatever to plug in like your sign-in data, your username and password. So for things, say like our SoundCloud, I have no concept. If I was going to get logged out of our SoundCloud, I have no concept what our login information is.
Yeah.
So I'd have to hit somebody up or something like that. Whereas Brave remembers it, but if they have a system update or a new browser update that comes probably once every 6 months, you have to install it, and you are forced then to lose everything. All your cookie data goes away. So you gotta be one of those people. If you're gonna get into the VPN lifestyle, you have to be one of those people that
remember
knows,
all your passwords. That's
remember all your passwords.
Yeah.
Do not count on that save password shit.
Yeah, that sucks.
So if you're going to do it, do some preemptive work and reset all your passwords and fucking write them down so you have them somewhere.
It's worth it. Use Tor. Use Tor, everyone.
Well, I mean, I'm in the military. I have to do that anyway. We have to get on fucking 20 different websites and put in different passwords for each one and change that every fucking 3 months or 6 months.
Dude, I do not fucking miss that. I don't miss that at all.
Yeah, it is fucking terrible.
It is so bad because... Yes, it is literally. You might have to have 30 different fucking passwords depending on which training site you're required to go to. And then every 3 to 6 months when you have to go to that site, you got to remember that shit. It's
terrible.
Yeah.
But it's good. It's a good thing. But it's fucking sucks. It's fucking sucks.
It sucks, though.
Yeah. So, more China.
Yes.
China. We saw, I think, very recently, it's been pretty out there now, that new national security law has come into play, finally, during the mix of the COVID. It's the same national security law that we've been talking about for multiple episodes, going way back since when it kind of started. So go back. You might have to do some research. I don't know which episodes those were, but our Hong Kong episodes. We talked about it.
Write that down, and I'll link back to the Hong Kong episodes.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir. Because it's very important to understand that all that stuff we were talking about back then that would allow to, extradition of Hong Kong residents to mainland China for mainland China laws that don't necessarily exist in Hong Kong, that can now happen. And one of the pushbacks to war that America has done since the passing of that law recently was the imposition of sanctions on our lovely Hong Kong chief executive, Carrie Lam.
Yes.
She has been officially sanctioned by the United States. So basically any U.S. company cannot do business with her. She can't do business with any U.S. company without either paying massive penalties or essentially not having access to the market. That was one of the latest and greatest I saw since the adoption of that national security law in Hong Kong.
Yeah, and this paper is from July 8th, and this has the article about the Hong Kong law.
July 8th. Perfect.
So
that is
early July.
1 month ago today.
Yeah, well, it's from July 8th to July.
And even for Zeke, it is officially like damn near 2 o'clock in the morning for this motherfucker. It is officially the same day that we're on now. It is.
He's a day
the 8th.
behind us or ahead of us?
Well,
Fucking OG out here, baby.
that's right. I think he's ahead.
Yeah,
Oh, no, wait. No, he's ahead? So it's Sunday?
probably.
Shit,
Yeah, it's
Zeke.
Sunday. It's,
Fuck. I was going the wrong way.
We're not that cool, bro.
Damn,
Yeah.
Gene. Anyway. So anyway, he lives in the future. Cool. So what's popping in the future? Oh, Jesus.
Offenses such as secession, subversion, and, quote, collusion with foreign forces now carry a maximum penalty of life imprisonment. The law triggers fear that Hong Kong, once a place where people could be outspoken critics of the regime, will turn into another mainland Chinese city under the authoritarian grip of the Chinese Communist Party. So, and that's exactly as vaguely as it's written in those laws.
Mm-hmm.
And so all this stuff that we've seen, and we saw somebody who, right after this was passed, a guy who had a flag in front of him that said Free Hong Kong that was arrested. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah,
we've seen
you
all
can't do
kinds
that.
of stuff like that. Of people just demonstrating, and it's the grip that they were already tightening on Hong Kong is even more. I think we talked about this. I mean, we saw
Oh, yeah.
the UK opened up, they said they were going to allow, a couple million Hong Kong citizens to come to the UK because of just how absurd these new national security laws are there.
And we need to be doing that. I don't know if we
I don't
have.
see why we're not, man. I mean,
But
if you have people
fuck.
from another country who are holding up our flags, you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
It's
How is that not a campaign point for Trump?
yeah.
How can you not be out there right now making that your number one fucking news title in every paper going, Trump calls for every disenfranchised Hong Kongese,
They could call them Hong Kongers.
Hong Kongers
Yeah.
to come to the United States. How is that
Ain't like
not
that.
the leading headline everywhere?
Right.
That should be happening, for God's sakes.
Orange Man bad, yeah.
Orange
You know what
Man
it is.
bad.
Orange man bad.
Jordan, get over here.
Because then he'd have to let the Mexicans in, Colin. If we don't have room for the Mexicans, how do we have room for the Hong Kong?
I mean,
The Mexicans are already
Okay.
coming in. That's
Fucking
not
Midwest, big
a
place, man. They
that's
go
not
there.
a valid
That's what they
argument.
would say.
no. I get it, though, right? Because if you look at it, I don't want to say it like on the levels of oppression, but like the people of Mexico are run by an incredibly corrupt government that is basically run by the cartels.
Obrador?
The Mexican government, the official Mexican government that is losing gunfights 2 cartel members in small cities within Mexico and then giving back the prisoners they just fucking captured.
Here you go.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess
Those people
that did happen. Yeah,
that are essentially being forced into
Mormons being murdered in Mexico.
Mormons being murdered.
All right. You sold me. He's fucking up. I got it.
That's a good point, Jordan. That's a good point.
I got it.
So, okay, but
Drugs and
I'm also kind of
I got it.
not opposed to being like, yeah, let all the Mexicans come in too. But mind you, just like, we got to do it the right way.
Well,
I'm into kind of free-flowing immigration with, like, checkpoints.
But remember, I just said just yesterday, we were talking on the way here. Or
God
on the
damn it,
way
Jordan,
home,
that was good.
Right? We're just talking that in the last few weeks, President Trump has said, he's like, yo, I'm going to knock out immigration. I'm going to knock out healthcare.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to do it all like in the next like 3 or 4 weeks.
Well, he's knocking out healthcare. We already saw that.
He said that he was going to write in a pathway to citizenship for the Dreamers, right?
At this
and
point,
that's what I'm saying, right? What I'm saying is that that's been one of the biggest sticking points this entire time is a pathway to citizenship for the Dreamers. And if he's already like, here we go.
Voting Trump this year.
I know. That's what I'm saying. That's why I hate this so much is because I'm like constantly feel like I'm forced into this position of defending Donald Trump when I feel like he's a gross human being.
Terrible.
And I'm a real like,
He's a fucking terrible person.
right? And so I'm a moral stance guy, and because I don't like who he is, and I don't like who Joe Biden is, I can't fucking vote for either of those guys.
Amen.
So
and we can't vote for Joe Jorgensen anymore because she kowtowed to the BLM movement.
I was so in favor of like the abolish the ATF thing. I was like, if nothing else, I can go for this. But
right, not anymore.
You know what I'm saying?
Cross the plane for me. So.
Anyway, so to be fair, if he's gonna knock out DACA, then he can be like, hey, what's the rest of the Hong Kongers that aren't going to go to the UK? Come on in. We got a bunch of Chinese people in San Francisco.
You know why you won't do that?
Nancy Pelosi says that she loves Chinese people, so let's bring him into California.
You know why he won't do that, though?
Sprinkle him.
He won't do that because it's not a Democratic talking point.
Yeah.
But the southern border is. So he can for there, but he won't for the Chinese.
Maybe Morgan and I will run on that.
Maybe.
Bring in the Hong Kongers.
Yeah, we didn't announce that.
No.
We need to...
We have to wait.
We have to wait? Okay, we have to wait.
All right. No.
We're not saying anyone's going to run for federal office or not, but... We're not going to say that. At any point, I could run for federal office. Why not?
Yeah.
Fuck it. Definitely not.
So I do think that it's interesting that, I mean, I guess they have like a more connection to UK has more connection to Hong Kong, but I still think if they're holding up American flags,
bro,
bring them motherfuckers home.
Come on.
Bring them home.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
But the problem is that it's easy to look at that situation in kind of a closed, in a bubble. Just deal with it without the consequences of what that would bring into play.
Yeah.
There's a lot more going on there geopolitically than just, the immigration factor. But the immigration factor would certainly become a thing if it's a national security issue that deals with a disenfranchised people that are being repressed by a repressive government. It's also an immigration issue at the same time, because if you want to bring those people, if you want to give them a safe haven, what about the rest of the fucking world that wants a safe haven? It's a dark place out there, so you have to open up the conversation then to a broader immigration thing, which then you get kind of like bogged down in the quagmire of...
Aren't the Chinese and the Mexicans enough? Isn't that... No? It's a joke for anybody listening, watching.
No, but it's a joke, but for God's sakes, there's only... The problem here is that the world is a really big goddamn place, Donovan, right? And it is hard for everyday people that have to deal with getting up and going to work and working the grind and paying the bills and taking care of kids and all the shit, getting to fucking soccer practice. They don't have time to think about all the subtle fucking nuances and all the threads that everything... Once you pull on this, it pulls on 30 other things. It's this web of governmental bureaucracy that we've built over the last few centuries.
All the omnibus bills and stuff.
It's become hard to talk about anything.
Well, and so I've always been an advocate, at least since we've been on this show. Spoken advocate. There's a tipping point in immigration. Eventually you have too many people in your country, and not just because we let too many people in, but people are fucking and having babies all the time. So at a certain point, there's just too many people that are here, regardless of how they got here, you know? And so, but I don't know. I don't know what that number is, you know? The dreamers are already here, you know what I'm saying? So that's, you're just changing one number to another number. And so that's not even like you're adding population. That's, the dreamers are already here. We talked about this. We literally went to school with people who are dreamers. Like they're already here, you know?
Not to mention the fact that the dreamers are not just a they are necessarily a segregation of people that showed up between point A and point B. Yeah. What about the people that showed up in the same fashion between point B and point fucking C where we're at today? Yeah. There's more dreamers, quote unquote, today than there were when we called them dreamers. Because of how long it's taken, there's more and more people that are subject to that.
And so
it's a wild fucking thing, but everything being written down in black and white and being handled through legislation, it makes it difficult to handle because there's always times put down set in black and white. Say, okay, this group of people between here and here, they're classified as dreamers. What about the rest of the people that showed up after that in the same fashion? You have to draw the line
somewhere.
And so that, again, it muddies up the waters when you're trying to talk about, say, bringing people from Hong Kong who just want to escape.
How many children do we let come here?
Exactly.
Yeah, no, it's weird. I can see it already.
Because there's a fucking number.
I can see it already.
There is a number.
No, you're right.
But
not to say that we shouldn't do it, but there are hurdles on the pathway to. Yeah. But it sounds like, you know, if
it's like both parties are right when they say that. We want to bring them here. Well, we want to make sure that we know exactly who we're bringing, blah, blah. Both those things should happen all at once.
Well, it sounds like they're going to let them, do another executive order. And just slap it out through the White House. So fuck them, right?
At this point, it feels like executive orders. And I don't know if this is because Trump thinks he's going to lose or if he thinks he's going to win and be completely justified in everything that he's doing with these executive orders. But like we talked about before, the executive order for the Dreamers, right? That just essentially got upheld by the Supreme Court. That said, Trump cannot essentially change this thing and just say they're not Dreamers anymore because we already, for whatever reason, right? No, but that proved that he has that level of executive authority to actually write into law everything that he's done since that ruling. Since that ruling, he has been hammering out executive order after executive order after executive order. Because the Supreme Court now has proven that an executive order, the executive amnesty thing, like if you can reach that far as the executive, as the president of the United States, and surpass the will of the American people to say, like, nope, all these people from here to here are now, you can't touch them. You can't deport them. They're just stuck in limbo. I'm creating this bubble for them to hang out in. What else can the president do, for God's sakes? And he's now going, I can pretty much do whatever the fuck I want.
Certainly. And we've established that we're all concerned about the extent of executive power. That's been a concern the entire time, you know? But
I'm getting like feedback all of a sudden.
Oh, there's extra noise coming out of there, but I don't think that.
Maybe I'll just turn this down
I think it's just shit on his end, just noise.
Word.
There you go.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay. Good.
Thanks for interrupting, Colin.
Sorry. I just want to make sure Zeke can be heard crystal clear.
No, that's fine. No, and I agree. I think that we all agree. There are enormous concerns about executive overreach, you know, but that's, I mean, again, these things have already been cemented for long enough that until there's some type of legislative fix combined with a judicial ruling that executive orders in and of themselves are unconstitutional, it's going to continue to go down.
And it's going to require a rollover from an existing executive or judicial ruling.
I think that the part of the reason that Donald Trump is doing these particular executive orders is because even if he doesn't win this next election, right? Which, who knows, you know, the polls say whatever, you know, but whatever, right? But even if he doesn't win the next election, if he's doing things like a pathway to citizenship for the Dreamers and some type of public option healthcare that's better than whatever the fuck the Democrats have cooked up, because the polls showed when the debates were going on that overall people didn't love the amount of money that went into that. You know, if there are things that are an overall benefit and generally on the Democratic side, right, like a pathway to citizenship and a public option are, then even if Joe Biden comes in the next time, he can't really turn those over and displease everybody who subscribes to that ideology, even if they're trying to make the argument that Donald Trump can't do that by himself, right? So they have to either fix that legislatively, or he has to just let it sit, because he can't fucking come in and all of a sudden tell the Dreamers, just kidding, I know that 6 months ago Donald Trump said that you guys could be here, but we're not doing it this way, and I'm putting you back in limbo until the courts, or until until Congress figures it out. Yeah, there's no way.
Because right now we've just decided they're in a perpetual limbo with that. I think that
right? It's a power move almost. You know. So
let me ask Zeke this question.
Yes.
Right, because this essentially it comes down to executive power. We just had the President of the United States pass immigration reform, multiple foreign policy trade problems because of sanctions
just today.
Yes, we have direct payments to the United States citizens, all under the authority of the executive order.
No. Remember this is payroll tax cuts, unemployment benefits extended, and then making sure people don't get evicted from their houses.
Okay, all done with this signing of the president's pen.
I'm just one of the
right. I don't. It's not the fact that like I disagree with what he signed.
No. You said direct payments. I'm just saying this. This isn't. That's all. I'm just correcting that. That's all. No, I agree. We're
all those things. Like we feel. I think generally that it's like this is stuff we wish the Congress could get done.
Yes.
But the president is now taking sole authority and saying, "No, you will do these things." How is this, Zeke, does this not somehow, even if you agree with all the things that he signed up, assuming you agree with all these recent executive orders, we're fucking on China, we're getting people the money they need, so on and so forth, right?
Fucking on China.
There is a fundamental problem in that, at least in my eyes. And, am I wrong in being somewhat offended by the fact that we're just allowing the president to be like, no, fuck it. I say I want it, so it's going to happen. Am I wrong here?
Man, no, you're not wrong. It's just like
even when the outcomes are good.
A lot of places. Say what now?
I was like, even when the outcomes are good, like we can't defend it though, right?
No, yeah, you're right.
Like I hate that. It's complicated. Fuck.
I know. This isn't really my strong suit topic. It's like one of those things that's like I'm like a rock in a hard place on this conversation because I'm from a family of immigrants myself, and my dad had to fucking leave Mexico under terrible circumstances, and I don't want to deny those people of Hong Kong because they're in terrible. They're in a terrible situation too.
It's everything that the Portland motherfuckers think is happening, except over there it's really happening.
Yeah,
right. I don't know. I'll have to stick with what you said, Colin. That's probably the most logical way to think about this.
And that's the problem. It's fucking logic shit gets in the way because it's like some of this stuff I don't think makes sense. But at a point when I wrestle with it enough, I go, no, man, these people have human fucking rights that need to be protected.
Right.
Am I becoming a neocon now? Because I'm like, motherfucker, this is not okay. We can't do this again.
No.
In Germany in the 1930s and 1940s, we didn't know necessarily that it was happening as a populace, right? The soldiers that showed up were incredibly just in shock about what they found, right? But we know now what that can look like, and we know that it is happening again, and we're just letting it happen. But on a on a legal level, on a constitutional level, we shouldn't be allowing the president to do these things that we think are right.
Yeah. But at what point do we, and this is a larger question that, we can think about, maybe we'll talk about it at another point, at what point of seeing those steps being repeated do you step in? What do you do? I mean, the only thing to truly stop China from running those camps, because even if they aren't able to sell any of those items to people, they're going to continue to lock up the Uyghur Muslims. Yeah. They're going to continue to kill people. They're going to continue to weld them into their homes. They're going to continue to steal people's organs, all this shit, right?
Oh, yeah. We didn't even talk about the fact that we still have no concept of the real actual numbers for coronavirus.
Well, and at this point, right?
They're still number 30. They're 30.
Yeah.
In the world tracker.
Fucking shit.
Their number hasn't really changed, which is like bullshit.
Exactly.
Fucking shit.
We see what happens.
Well, and at this point, I think part of the point of this whole segment we just did on China, right, is that I wrote like a little paragraph thing that I was gonna, it's long past now, but
I was gonna say you could read it.
No, it's long past now. But the idea is that I think that most people, including the media, don't take the threat of China seriously enough, and part of it is because Donald Trump is so focused on it, because
Donald Trump is such man bad.
Exactly. Because it's such a focal point. It's just that he's being a racist, right? And I talked earlier. It took videos of Muslim people being forced onto trains and random, ominous, anonymous seeds being sent to people's house, and TikTok being banned for anybody to even begin to give a shit about any of this stuff. And I've got a page and a half of stuff that we just went over at things that China. Pervasive efforts that China is actively engaged in. And it's just these three things that people actually care about. Finally, a video of people being forced onto trains is what they care about. Not the confirmed reports by Reuters, by the Epoch Times for years now, right?
Maajid Nawaz went on a fucking hunger strike for, I think, up to 5 or 6 days, before he finally got enough signatures.
Like that.
And woke Americans that are here, like you said, people in Portland, woke Americans are so insane with Trump derangement syndrome and a fear of being canceled to accept that this exists and to try and address the fact that the CCP is affecting, almost every aspect of our lives at this point.
They can't do that. Because to do that would mean they would have to focus on the repression of a group that has been deemed already a part of the problem.
Right.
Under the intersectional hierarchy, Asians are allowed to be discriminated against because, for whatever reason, they tend to have better test scores and they work harder and so on and so forth. And they can't deal with that, so they can't back them because their ideology now has gotten in the way of it. And this brings us all the way back to their upbringing in academia and everybody adopting this Marxist values. And now China is able to go wherever they want. And that portion of the population that has been affected by the brain virus, the mind virus of Marxism, they're allowed to do whatever they want. Yeah. And so China can do whatever they want, and a vast portion of the United States won't say shit about it. Or they'll just pretend it doesn't exist. Hashtag free Hong Kong on the back of your jersey. You can't put that on there. You could put fuck America. But you can't put anything else. That just means that there was one thing.
Put that on their fucking jersey. Could you imagine?
I cannot. Have you watched an NBA game recently?
I have seen clips. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they have Black Lives Matter. I can't breathe. I'm like, well, how about the Hong Kong people?
Yeah.
No.
Nope.
Oh wait, it's because you got fucking getting paid from China. Okay.
Oh, yeah. We're gonna adopt.
You can't say shit about that, can you?
Nope. And we're gonna change our fucking movies. We're going to change the Avengers, Infinity. What was the last one? Endgame?
It was Doctor Strange. They had
Doctor Strange was one.
Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
What did they change about it?
You couldn't be a... What was it? Zeke? You tell me.
It had something to do with the monk. I think the original monk had to be was a Tibetan monk, and they changed it to something else. And it was supposed to be a male, and then they changed it to a female.
You couldn't do it the way they did in the fucking comic because now it's racist. I don't.
What I've also heard about, in the new Top Gun, he had a patch on his arm that had to do with I know whatever it is that, now
was like
is
the communist flag or something like that.
Something like that having to do with the Chinese,
Because when the first Top Gun came out, it was like
maybe it was like a Taiwanese patch or some shit like that, and now so that they can air it in China, it can't be a Taiwanese patch. It was something like that.
Yeah.
You can look it up. I don't remember. I don't want to misquote it, but it was something to that effect. And there's a lot of stuff like that.
Which means they're changing our movies.
Mm-hmm.
We've proven that now. That the point that the dollar aspect
they're influencing us. They are trying to influence us
successfully.
And successfully, mind you, through, whether it's through the news, our entertainment, what our kids watch, what we use, Nikes, you know what I'm saying?
Popular
they are
culture.
fucking everywhere, and that should be a major concern.
Mm-hmm. Fucking popular culture. That was like a subject we haven't hit that much on your list of societal thing.
Right.
Nike, fucking iPhones.
Yeah.
Where you get your iPhones, Foxconn, nets on the side of the buildings because the slave labor that's happening inside is so bad that people want to kill themselves. They put nets outside the window so they can't.
Mm-hmm.
That's the kind of thing we're talking about.
Cents a day, which is disgusting.
And that...
The pure civil rights violations. And there's a video that John and Olivia showed me, actually. There's a company, a YouTube channel called Jubilee. Have you heard of this before? You should look it up too, Zeke. Jubilee. And they bring together just people that are on opposite sides of an argument.
Number one thing.
Oh, yes. Okay, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, and so they had one that John and Olivia was showing to me. I'm going to rewatch it because we were working out, so I only watched so much of it. That was Chinese citizens versus U.S. citizens, and they were talking about like their country's respective responses to the virus and stuff like that. And some of the party rhetoric that was being spewed by some of these citizens was like shocking. It was concerning to hear some of the shit they're talking about. Like, oh, we barely had any cases at all. Like, nothing really happened. Like, the government handled it excellently. Like, it's not, like there's no coronavirus here anymore. We know that there's new outbreaks happening all the time. Like, we're seeing it. We have reports of it. And they're like, yeah, no, it's like totally handled. It's like not even a problem at all. Yeah.
There is no war in Boston.
Yeah, it was shocking, bro. And it is all the way down to the people they allow to be on YouTube shows.
You should have never introduced me to Avatar. Zeke, you seen Avatar?
Yes.
Last Airbender, yeah.
Yeah. I just watched that. Jonathan just got me on it. So I missed it when I was a kid, but I watched it just now. Fuck, it's so good.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah. And it was, like I said, it's shocking.
Yeah.
To see that type of stuff,
I mean, you talk about the original meaning of like woke, right? When woke first came out, that was like it was almost what woke used to be would probably be classified as a right-wing conspiracy theory today.
Yeah.
It was kind of waking up essentially and noticing that like essentially the media was running a narrative on you. They weren't providing you the truth. They may not have been lying to you directly in the nature they are now, but they were running a narrative on you. They were not being truthful. And it went all the way down to the academy, the same problems that exist that we're recognizing, I guess, today, really. It's been happening for a very long time.
So this was my point about the Jubilee thing, was, you had these 3 Chinese citizens talking about how excellent the response was to the coronavirus. Mm-hmm. And we had videos and reports of people being, like I said earlier, welded into their homes. Just entire buildings being welded into their homes. And like, we'll just come back in 2 weeks, coming back to apartments full of dead people because they welded them into their fucking houses. And they have people that are actually going to go on to, I mean, they probably have hundreds of thousands, if not millions of subscribers, Jubilee. I don't know how many they have, but
I don't know if it's the right one.
I'm sure that it is.
You got a drink back there?
Is that it? Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
So how many?
5.53 million subscribers.
Right. So they are going to allow 3 individuals to go on and speak to 5.5 million people. At least those are just the subscribers.
Yeah, that's right. We know that's a small fraction.
Let's say a quarter, right? Even though it's probably way
on a good day,
a quarter, right? So You have 20 million people that are going to watch those videos.
Jesus
and
Christ.
they're going to see how many views does the Chinese citizen one have, which I'm sure it's on the top.
I'm trying to find here. Let me go to video.
Yeah, it's like Chinese.
Strangers rate a model. 5
Isn't that fucked up? Like to her face. Yeah, super weird. Anyway, but yeah, so like we have actual validated information that's counter, and they're just saying the complete opposite. They're willing to lie,
Oh my God, how did I not know this place? Subscribe.
Yeah, these horrible, horrible civil rights abuses, even outside of Hong Kong.
I haven't found the Chinese one, but there's enough already on here.
Yeah, it's like
I'm seeing are like, yes. Should we defund the police?
Man, they were good.
I'm not racist. You're the racist.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm really excited to get into
Israel,
this.
Palestine, they have some pretty good ones on there.
Wow. We need to be doing a little bit of this on the side.
So this one's from Jubilee. Yeah, is anyone to blame for the pandemic? Chinese citizens versus Americans. 221,000 views, which is weird considering they have 5.5 million subscribers, and that was put on YouTube 2 months ago, that video.
Whoa.
So that's weird.
That's fucking, that's total
Isn't
bullshit.
that odd? So I'd be interested to know why that's the case.
Because hashtag YouTube. That's why.
Because nobody in America is interested about the coronavirus pandemic, right? Nobody here cares about the coronavirus at all.
Not even a little bit.
So nobody would want to hear what Chinese people have to say about their countries.
We're systematically destroying our country because of the coronavirus, but we don't care to get the true stats.
Yeah, that's fucked up.
Not even a little bit.
Dude. A percentage of their subscribers have watched that. That's absurd. There's no way. There's no way that's
that is how you measure metrics, though.
But they have to just be like not even showing. It's got to just not even be showing up on people's feeds.
Yeah.
If only that many people have seen it.
Yeah. And it doesn't mean they're not going to find it either.
Yeah, that's crazy. Did you have any other points that you wanted to hit with China that we didn't get to, Zeke?
I mean, at the end of this, I'm probably like, fuck, I forgot to bring this up.
It's always how it works.
At the moment, no, I think we covered China fairly well.
Yeah,
so we can move on to something different if you'd like.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I said, that's this is just a portion. Like there is we could probably do a whole nother episode given a few more weeks of different ways. Sure. Yeah. Let's see. Is there anything else that you wanted to hit in regards to China, Colin?
I mean, no. I mean, realistically, that's probably what we can do.
There is one more thing.
There's so much popping in China.
One more thing that I wanted to talk about last week that we didn't get to.
We almost didn't hit anything in Portland, by the way.
Yeah, and that's...
So if you had something you needed to get off your chest.
Not in regards to Portland.
Maybe that's a subject. Maybe that's a thing we should do right before our get out line. It's like, what is the thing you have to get off your chest?
Yeah.
And it's the one statement you can put in where we don't have any conversation. This is the one thing I truly meant to talk about, but I can't. So here's that.
That's a good idea.
So maybe if you need that, Zeke, at the end, just let us know.
So let's talk about this last topic real quick, and then we'll see if anyone had. They call them concluders on the Meat Eater podcast, and we'll call them whatever. What did you got to get on my chest? That's a good one.
You got to get off your chest.
Yeah. So this last one that I wanted to talk about last week, right? We've talked about the McCloskeys a couple episodes now, right? And this is the couple.
That's the Missouri couple, right?
Yes, right? And so at first it was just that they, were just a meme factory, and they had, an altercation. An altercation, interaction with the protesters. And then, the police came and took their guns. And then there was tampering in the police department with their guns because one of them was inoperable when they took it, but they fucked with it, made it so they could
firing pin, I think,
was like reversed. Backwards or something. Yeah. And then the McCloskeys catch felony gun charges.
Whoa!
Right. The McCloskeys have caught felony gun charges in regards to brandishing their weapons in a threatening manner towards the protesters on their own fucking property.
Mm-hmm.
And so the governor has said that he will pardon them. You know, he said I think a week or two before these charges came down that he was going to pardon them if anything came of it. That hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
But the very idea that two people on their own fucking property who are also simultaneously claiming that they were receiving death threats from the protesters, not only had their guns taken from them, but then received felony fucking gun charges on top of it.
Yeah.
They
were just peacefully protesting.
You have got to be fucking joking me. I cannot believe that this is happening here, bro. In Missouri.
It's peacefully protesting.
Yeah. So
when that
they're
happened,
protesting in the cities, and it's only a matter of time before they knock on your door and start saying, you know, we're fucking protesting you. We want fucking money for our oppression. That's what I'm getting out of this shit, and that's scary to me.
Literally, we had Seattle Times had an article about the shop owners, the store owners that were in the shop and how they were affected. They talk about it in that article in the Seattle Times, and they are not appreciative of being held at fucking gunpoint and told to, quote unquote, you know, to hypothetically bend the knee and pay them off. It is extortion through and through. It was a racket when it was happening. You need to either contribute X amount of your profit to an approved fucking nonprofit, or you had to pay a tax directly.
Us. Yeah, and we've seen that happen in other places too. We just saw a store, I don't remember where it was at, but that was owned by a Cuban immigrant, and him and like a bunch of other immigrants.
Miami?
Probably
Florida somewhere.
I mean, not to be racist, but probably.
Florida.
Yeah. I mean, just by virtue of the fact that he's Cuban, was told the same thing. They needed to donate X amount of his profits to a charity or just give it to them. And you can fuck right off.
Yeah.
I'm a goddamn Cuban immigrant. I'm not paying to any of this bullshit for fucking oppression that I did not cause. Like,
Did you see that story, Zeke?
Oh yeah, I saw the same story.
Yeah. Lots of these, there was a group of protesters that, I guess, I don't want to call them protesters at this point. They were like people that were willing to demonstrate for him, the store owner, and all this protest and like anti-protesting.
So we're going to oppress you.
Yes, 100%. It is so.
And extort you and fucking take your money from you forcibly, or we're just going to fucking destroy your business.
Amen.
That is wrong.
And Zeke, can I ask you, if you were to try to look into your crystal ball and find out what it is that is causing them to hold those store owners up at gunpoint and give to whatever, you know, nonprofit or so, whatever they're calling, like, what is their purpose for doing these protests at this point? From looking at the news coverage and what you've seen from it, have you been able to discern any kind of like demand or desire that these groups want?
No, that's the thing. I've been looking at this shit like historically.
Yeah.
I've been looking at this shit historically to be like, okay, so do these guys want any meaningful legislation? Like, I pulled up like a list of like protests that were successful and that ended up with meaningful legislation. I'm like, okay, let's go through here. Little Rock 9, it resulted in Brown versus Board of Education in May 17th of 1954.
Yeah.
Peaceful protest, successful. Montgomery bus boycott, the Freedom Riders, MLK, all peaceful, successful, and got legal legislation done, taken care of.
Boom.
Women's suffrage. Let's not just keep it to minorities, but women's suffrage of 1993. The women's rights movement granted women more political rights, like property rights, whereas women's suffrage movement achieved 19th Amendment, which gave women the right to vote.
Fucking love this guy. I love this guy.
Right. And then, what happens when you riot? Let's go back to Rodney King in 1992 in LA, the LA riots. Was it wrong? Absolutely. People had the right to be upset. But did anything meaningful happen? Absolutely not. Because they were destroying businesses. They weren't fighting the right fight.
Yeah. That's how you get rooftop Koreans, man.
They weren't doing things the right way.
Yep.
And we even talked early on in the riots, how things were being misguided from small businesses, how they really should be directed more towards federal buildings.
Rooftop Muslims.
Too much time has passed now, and the movement is no longer about what it started as. It's now about far leftist groups trying to tear down the government and destroy federal buildings, right? I'm not advocating for it, but if during the original George Floyd protest a federal building had been lit on fire and destroyed, it would have held a completely different impact than right now. If
we
the federal
talked
building,
about that.
Then if the federal building is to be caught on fire tonight and burned down, it's not gonna stand for the same thing. It's not gonna send the same message. That's gonna be about destruction of the government, not about we are upset. This is happening. These are our feelings about whatever. Like this, it's completely separate. They're not even the same thing, No. And it's
been totally and utterly co-opted.
Right. Like I said, I'm not advocating for either. When we were talking about it, I said, if you're going to destroy something, it probably should be this. You know what I'm saying? But now it's too long.
Don't
it's
burn
been
the
too
federal
long.
building.
Yeah, it's too late. These things are no longer connected,
Yeah.
Blinding police officers, all this shit that I'm not
See the
saying,
little old ladies?
I'm not arguing on either side. When you're talking about police officers being blinded, being legitimately injured for the occupation that they hold, whether or not I agree with their choice to do what they're doing, being blinded permanently for holding an occupation, I think is really fucking gross.
Oh, yeah.
And
You're maiming somebody, for God's sakes. Zeke, let me ask you this question. I want to know how deep you get. Do you listen to Tim Pool at all?
Absolutely.
He sends me Tim Cast clips all the time.
Oh, good. Okay. Then, all right. Then me and you are going to text like every day now. Because I always need more points of input.
I talk to Zeke multiple times a week.
Perfect. I don't know why I'm so late to the party, but I'm so glad that I could have met you. Jesus. So I wanted to ask you one more thing before we kind of ended as far as China went. And now all of a sudden I'm drawing a blank here. So let me put it this way. How has the show been for you so far? Are you pretty relaxed so far? And as now we're kind of getting towards the end of things.
Like, I mean, I was pretty nervous, and I've gotten more comfortable. I would obviously I'd love to be over there personally, but I've loved how this has turned out personally.
Oh, fuck yeah! So all that being said, right? I just due to the fact that you're feeling a little comfortable now. Is there one thing, like what is the one thing that has happened over the past week? Especially given your kind of fucked up circumstance and the stuff that you've been going through, kind of like hanging out in this weird limbo. Is there something that has come across socially, politically, governmentally, geopolitically, whatever it is, that has really just really nagged on your craw and that's like really got you wanting to like ask something about it or talk about it? What's the one thing that you really can't just like to steal a line from NPR?
Does it have to be about China, or does it have to be about anything?
Anything. What's the one thing like we haven't talked about today that you're just still nagging at you?
The thing that's been nagging at me is Portland and what happened in Seattle with Chaz.
Okay.
Believe it or not, I was completely for it, but they took it in a completely different direction than what I wanted it or had hoped it would have gone to. Because to me, since I've been there, since I've lived there most of my life, racism wasn't the issue.
Okay.
Like
talk about Chaz.
The issue that I think that the West Coast is facing is to me is it's bigger than racism. To me, racism is like an anthill in front of a mountain. That kind of thing. Like, all right. So here's my point, and I mean nothing else by what I'm saying. So just bear with me. If a billionaire and a bunch of cronies have mountains of evidence against them in regards to pedophilia, sex trafficking, and other crimes against humanity, and the U.S. District Attorney cannot indict these criminals, and you cannot hold public officials responsible for their crimes, then what we have is a criminal justice system that is so horribly corrupt and embarrassingly rotten to the core that stealing the attention away from these crimes and replace the attention in such a way most at-risk section of society is absolutely embarrassing. They're looking at an anthill with a magnifying glass when they're standing in front of a mountain.
Okay.
Race is a small portion of this, and we figured it out 70 years ago.
That's a good point. So that being said, what do we do about it? You're in charge. You have the keys to the lever. You're pulling all the switches. You're doing everything. You have utter control of your utopia. How do you fix that? What does it look like?
Fucking the Epsteins, people who have money that can buy off fucking politicians, they're in fucking prison. If there's evidence against them, they go to fucking prison. Just, I want the system to work the way it's. Fuck, it's like, I wish I could.
But it's a big question. Don't feel that bad.
Like, basically, if against an average Joe, basically, if your average person was being sent to prison for something like the evidence says that he did, right?
Mm-hmm.
He should go to prison. That should not be limited to just the average citizen and not like be made
from president down. Everyone should be accountable.
From president down. Like you don't get pardoned from that. There's no pardons for whatever the fuck you did.
So how do you fix that?
You are doing the crime.
Yeah. How do you fix that? That's a problem because it's the eternal question.
We have to hold people accountable.
Yeah, if I am understanding Zeke's kind of point here, his what he's driving at here, he's fed up with corruption, 100%. How do you get rid of a corrupt system through a system which can only be changed by working throughout that system that has already been corrupted? Does that not call for a revolution? Let me ask Zeke that question. How do you fix it?
That's kind of what I was hoping for with Chaz. Like, I have no problem with them showing up to like a governor's or a politician's house and peacefully protesting and trying to hold these people accountable. Mm-hmm. What I have a problem with is just fuck, man. I'm losing my train of thought too much right now, but
it's people. I think the imperfections within people within the movement. It takes away from the movement. Even if, like, the Chaz may have started out under the auspices of the right ideas, but as soon as people get involved, it gets fucked up. I think that might be where the problem lies, is in the imperfection of humans trying to be idealistic.
Yeah, when the Chaz started, I had a lot of high hopes for the Chaz.
Word.
I was in big favor of what they were, the idea of what they were doing, and it quickly deteriorated into stupidity at first, and then crime and sexual assault and murder shortly thereafter.
Which somebody just got
extortion.
Somebody just got arrested on charges related to the murders. Or a murder.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing, Zeke. I just basically asked him if there's one thing we hadn't gotten to, the one thing that's still nagging at him. We didn't really dive into Portland and Chaz too much, but so if we were going to slowly start to end this, because I think it's about time, unfortunately, what would be the thing what's nagging at you still? What's the one thing you want to get off your chest that we hadn't talked about today? Even an aspect of something we did talk about that you didn't get to.
Yeah, no, I guess it would boil down to paying attention to the things that don't show up on your feed, and that's a hard thing to do, like we were talking about. But a lot of the big stuff, conversations about the idea of Bill Clinton and other people in power, celebrities. That's just the one person that's, easy to almost verify. You know what I'm saying? But other people of power, other famous people, being connected to pedophilia, child trafficking, pederasty.
I feel like it's strangely in line to what
Zeke just said, that you were not
Yeah.
here to hear. So this is very, very natural,
No, and I
might add.
just think that it's important to do deeper research and stuff.
Okay.
You know, it was like our show where we're talking about things like this, where we're going to spend an hour and a half talking about China and the ways that it's directly affecting your life are going to be hidden from you. You know, these things that we're spending this much time on to produce for people to have this information are being hidden from people. We talked about that for probably half the pre-show, you know?
Oh, yeah.
The content that we're making is being systematically hidden from the people who are choosing and saying already that they want to consume it, you know? So I would just implore people to put in, unfortunately, more effort than they're doing now, even if it's just to try and listen to our show or something like our show. You know, I'm always hesitant to be like, oh, well, just listen to our show and that'll be all you need, you know? But, I mean, it's a good gateway into, we talk about enough other content, you know, that we consume to get to where we're at, that I think that this is a good doorway for somebody who's trying to get into the world of political honesty and objectivity and a deeper understanding and comprehension of the world that we live in. You know, I mean, especially since Corona started, I've started to look at things kind of two different ways, you know, under the rules that we play under now, and then if there's to be a new set of rules, the way that I would play under those ones.
I don't even remember rules before Corona anymore. I don't. So I don't remember what it was like.
Don't think that it's wrong for people to be looking at things that way. You know, I told Jordan that I just have thought in the last week or so that, like, begun to think that, like, we may actually be at a pivotal point in American history. You know, for a long time, I wrote off the idea of any type of, like, large governmental shift, whether it be through, you know, some type of attempted overthrow or coup or takeover of a city, you know.
Because it seems ridiculous.
But
it seems ridiculous.
The Venn diagram of quote-unquote oppressed and woke people, you know, has grown large enough that it's encompassing Antifa. You know, we saw Garrett Foster, who has ties to the Boogaloo community and to these Black Lives Matter protesters that are there. The Venn diagram is growing large enough that eventually there will either be enough people or enough people with firearms that, you know, what we're seeing at the courthouse in Portland or the federal building in Portland isn't going to be just improvised explosives. It's going to be actual firearms, you know, and it's going to be an entire city or a small town, you know, or something like that.
And what are we going to do when it's the most progressive town?
Yeah, so that's the type of stuff that not that situation specifically, but some type of large governmental shift, you know, we may actually be in that time, you know.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, times have been so good for so long. It's about time we had a little strife.
Well, and we're sitting here for enough hours a month identifying problems that we're like, but what do you do? What do you do without a governmental, you know, shift, without a huge, you know, change in the way that these systems work? Like, how long do people have to have these conversations? Not even have to. How long do people have these conversations before enough people are pissed off enough that it happens? 3 generations is what we talked about on the way here.
Yep.
If I counted it, if I was to count 3, 1 would be our parents, 2 would be us, 3 would be our children. By the time that I'm dead, the city's going to be taken over by people who don't agree with what's going on here.
That might fundamentally, to their core, disbelieve in what's going on here. Like the fact that it might be considered unthinkable. That's terrifying.
The shift is moving enough already from people in our generation, from people like us who we have our lines drawn in our head, you know, of when it's time to strap up. And until then, we sit and we talk about it. We try and make change within this system, you know. Or other people that we know that we're seen in Portland, that we're seen in all these other cities, that line is blurred for them, you know. It doesn't exist. It may be way, way long ago. That probably is too soon for a line to be reasonably drawn, you know. We're seeing that a lot now. By the time that we all have kids, Zeke has a daughter, we have a son, you guys are going to have kids, you know what I'm saying? By the time that all of our kids are grown, that line's going to be way, way, way before ours is now.
I was just thinking about the differences between now and when you were a kid with your parents.
Yeah,
you know?
and we haven't discussed it outright, but I
That's
imagine
wild.
I imagine my red line and your line are about in the same place where we're like, okay, now is the time that we're going to the streets. We're putting on the fucking plate carriers. We have the ARs. And we're going now. You know,
It's going to be in November. It's going to be in November.
I would imagine that
maybe December, depending on how long it takes. But
I would imagine our red line. You know, other people we know are around the same place. You know, we've seen a lot of people whose line is already crossed. You know,
oh yeah,
so,
and it takes enough of them to add up to a problem.
And the more generations, the more people hear us talking about this. You know, if 30 years have gone by and we have all this money and we're, you know, influencers and we're doing all this in a positive way, not in like a YouTube influencer way, but, you know, people have been listening to us and there are kids now who are finding us 30 years from this. And these motherfuckers have been talking about inequality with fundamental inequality for Americans for 30 years now.
Yeah.
This doesn't work anymore. It's time to take the fuck up arms and we're going. It only takes that long, you know? So,
well,
dark as that is, that's what I would leave people with.
well, that's a thing, right? And this is the thing. And I will say this, I had kind of a two-parter. I'm going to try to remember what the second more substantial one was while I explain the first. So the first one being, essentially, you know, what we're trying to do here and all this good stuff and talking about it, you know, like, if you're listening, if you're appreciative to what we're doing, you know, please share this. You know, if you think what we're talking about and the way we're trying to have these conversations is worth, you know, reproducing, please spread this around. You know, that's really all I ask. You know, we're not looking for AdSense. You know, we don't have any advertisers at this point. We are a homegrown podcast trying to, I don't want to say red pill people, but, you know, we're just trying to lay it all out there. We're trying to be honest and have three honest conversations since we've started getting all these guests in with people that work and live in the community that we grew up in. You know, it's important because it is a direct reflection of what America actually is compared to the picture from the media that you're getting that is what they view America as.
Yeah.
There's not so fine line between the picture that we're getting anymore from the media to what is actually happening, boots on the ground. You know, I think I might have mentioned to you before, but earlier, I think it was last week, I saw a group of demonstrators on the Kingston corner, down at Four Corners there, where the protests and demonstrations always happen, that were demonstrating. There was 3 or 4 people down there demonstrating against child trafficking. And this was the same day that the video for the last episode came out, so it was like last week sometime. But it was like, how coincidental, you know, that this is happening. And it is so reassuring to me that more and more people are starting to be like, hey, what the fuck is going on here? This is something that has been swept under the rug. Whether it doesn't make dollars, so media companies don't produce it, or they're trying to hide something, we don't know. That is yet to be seen. But for whatever reason, people don't know about this. It's not broadcast on the daily news. It's not anywhere. And it's nice to see people, you know, demonstrating for these things. So peacefully protesting, if you will, to get out there and practice their First Amendment right. So it's very nice. If you're appreciative of the conversations, please like, subscribe, share wherever you're watching this. Leave reviews, leave the likes, and all that really does is just help feed the algorithm so that we can get out there a little bit more. You know, other than that, all I really care, like, I'm not looking for any money. Don's not looking for any money. We have what we want. We want to make money if we're doing this, right? But at the reason we started this is because we wanted people to be more informed about what was going on. We have an election in fucking November, which is right around the corner.
And we're going to go over the ballots for the general election like we did last year.
We don't even know who the actual Democratic nominee is going to be at this point. It is August 8th. We don't know. The Democratic Party has not settled on a nominee. That's going to be I can't let it go or whatever it is. I got to get off my chest. The Democratic Party needs to step the fuck up because right now I feel like all they want to do is sign up for another 4 years of Trump so they can just obstruct for another 4 years, which essentially politically is sitting in idle. Yeah. It means you do not know what to do or how to do it. So you sit there and just say, orange man bad. And the fact that you saw 3 different Biden signs coming into the studio today, none of which were officially created by the Biden campaign. They all are, and they're all 3 different.
Yeah,
I guarantee
they are all different
because they are made by private organizations that are helping to. They're essentially PACs that are trying to. They're donating money and all this stuff. There is no official Biden 2020 actual Democratic nominee yet. That is not happening. It may change. Who fucking knows? So that is let's leave it at that. Okay? Just pay the fuck attention, please. Question everything you heard. You need to fact check everything that you hear. Whether it's the stupid fucking Axios interview, which I watched right before we started the podcast today, by the way, with Donald Trump. Again, that's the second time I watched it. It is so bad. Everything is bad. Yeah. I don't know how to... I want to be more optimistic, but I've lost it. And I hate to say it, but I got a track record of being semi-close to right on these things, and I am not seeing a bright future.
You don't feel good about it.
I don't feel good about it.
Have you watched the Axios interview, Zeke?
I have not.
Oh, good Lord.
Oh,
you got to go onto the YouTubes, look up Donald Trump Axios interview. It was horrific.
Exactly. And actually, now that I think about it, right before we go into our line, since Zeke is not here in person, and he's going to go ahead and send me a picture that we can use for the video.
Yes.
Let's go ahead and pretend we're going to take a picture with him with our arms around him.
And you're going to put him here.
And then we're going to put him in the video. So thumbs up, smile. And now we can end this motherfucker.
That's awesome.
There's your thumbnail, baby.
That's awesome. You're going to have to look for that at the end of the video, Zeke.
Yes.
Oh, Jesus.
No, and now I got to give Zeke a little shade here. If he is OG number 1, where's Zeke's t-shirt? Did we not get him a t-shirt? He has a t-shirt.
He bought one. I shipped it to him to Indiana.
Bro, we need to give him a free shirt.
He offered to buy it.
Of course he did, because he's the OG.
We had the whole conversation.
Yeah,
God damn it, Zeke.
I don't want it free. I want to support you guys.
Yeah, no, he wanted to buy it.
This is the same thing we had about that conversation about whether we should get on Patreon or not.
Yeah.
And, fuck.
I sent
Patreon,
it to him.
Dude.
I sent it to him with business cards and I think one of my notes.
Oh, word?
Wrapped in paper from work. Yeah, I shipped it from Bennick.
Oh my god, I love it.
He got a legit ass Salt of the Streets t-shirt from work and everything.
So
it came in brown paper, right, Zeke?
Oh yeah.
Oh fuck.
Paper. Yeah. I got my shirt with a fuckload of business cards.
There you go.
All right. So that being said, the rules of the game are: if you can name the theme of the line.
This is a show. I've been doing a show.
We're doing a show. Yeah. So name the show that this line comes from. And you will get a handcrafted, hand-pressed, homemade fucking Salt of the Streets t-shirt shipped out via Donovan's hands with the same paper, the brown paper that he takes notes with and works with every day.
To Dubai.
To Dubai. You can have it. Yeah. I don't care where the fuck you are. All right?
Send him a sweatshirt to Dubai.
I know the homies ship all over the world. If you could ship to Israel, you can ship to Dubai.
I can totally ship it to Dubai. That's not a problem.
So, stuff onto an AOE.
I'll pay for it. Right. I'll pay for it.
You can put my P.O. box down. How about that?
If I ship it from work, it's probably cheaper.
So, guess the line, free t-shirt.
That's funny. At the end of the day, if you're going to go out to eat, something bad happens. If all else fails, fill out a comment card. Claire was a real dick.
I can't agree with that because the only Claire I know was an angel.
Angel.